welcome to the Hawks Nest live stream show. My name is Brandon Kane, and I do thank you for tuning in. Hopefully you're having a great end of your summer here. Warm weather, cold drink, and dreams of a beautiful future for your Seattle Seahawks football team. As we have wound down training camp, we've gotten through our 3 preseason games. The hard, gritty work is done. We now turn our eyes here to the regular season. But before we can get to that point, we've got to get down to the final 53-man roster. You start out this process hoping you have a lot of depth, hoping you're going to have a lot of tough decisions to be made. Sometimes you can have a real weak roster, and that doesn't turn out to be the case. But I think instead this year it's going to be quite the opposite being true. This is a team that is maturing, that has added a lot of youthful talent here for the past couple of years, added a bevy of draft picks in this last draft, and that's made these decisions a little bit harder this year, I think, than it has maybe in recent years past. It does help you have the 12 guys on the practice squad, but it still means that you're going to end up probably cutting guys away that are going to go to active rosters onto other teams and maybe able to contribute on those teams and what they did. So I've looked at this pretty closely. I've, of course, been monitoring this thing throughout training camp. I was there in person at training camp, the scrimmage games. We've seen all 3 of the preseason games. So a pretty good idea of, I think, which direction the team is probably going to head, though we're all going to get a couple of these wrong when it's all said and done. And there's no telling when the team might make some other moves here to the other side of it, a trade here, release this guy, add this guy as well. So I think that those are real things that have a real possibility of happening, especially considering the Seahawks are sitting on so much cap space. And so they're not restricted in that way. Kind of opens that many more doors of possibility open to them to where many more guys that maybe if they were tight to the cap, they couldn't even consider that they can kind of consider right now. Going back last year and taking a look at the roster, because that was Mike Macdonald's first roster experience, and so I think that it can give you a little bit of a look into where he'll lean to as you go into the future on this one. You had Sam Howell, Geno Smith, just 2 quarterbacks, just 3 running backs. You kept a little bit of the extra receivers there. As you can see, you had 6 wide receivers. You had 4 tight ends on the roster there. And so a few of those things stand out offensively. The other things are pretty by the book. The number of offensive linemen, I think, is pretty normal to what you see across the league there. You can see as well when you've got like inside off-ball linebackers. We got Jerome Baker. We got Terrell Dodson there. You've got Tarek Thomas as your 3rd there. Tyrese Knight as your 4th. So 4 inside linebackers last year. As far as defensive tackles, we had Hankins, Williams. I know they have these guys listed as defensive ends, but let's just call them defensive tackles. Byron Murphy, nose tackle, Jaron Reed, Miles Adams as basically your 5th. And I'm counting basically Derek Hall here as your edges. So you had 5 of the defensive tackles. How many of the edges did you end up keeping last year? You got Uchenna, you got Boye, you got Draymond, Derek Hall, we got Trevis Gibson. That's 5 there to my count on that. And Mike Morris for 6, essentially. So again, I know they have Leonard Williams DE and Mike Morris DE, but let's, for the sake of the matter, kind of just consider some of these numbers as we're looking at trying to project this. 4 safeties, essentially 2 free safeties, 2 strong safeties, and then you had 5 cornerbacks as well. So I think some of these numbers are going to hold up as we project this to this season. But then also there's a part of this that, and I just realized something on one of my notes here that I've got a little bit wrong that we're going to have to take off on this one. But also we're going to have to make a little bit of adjustments, as I just remembered right now that I probably got mine wrong on mine here that I got to fix real quick. And so that adjustment is going to be that you're going to need to add an extra quarterback to the active roster. I think there's been a little bit of confusion from the Seahawks fandom on this one where they say, well, we'll just have one of the quarterbacks kind of inactive and you have the 2 and you can go to this guy if you need it for an emergency case. It doesn't work that way. If you're trying to use Milroe as the backup there, or as this guy that comes in for these packages, he's the backup then, and Locke is inactive, and then Locke can only come in the game at that point if essentially Jalen gets hurt. So you're a little bit restricted in your ability to kind of pull that off in that way, I think, a little bit. And so I wanted to fix this up here real quick if I can. Spell this guy's name wrong. And so I don't see the team going that route here. You know what I mean? I think that we're going to see them just hold on to the 3 quarterbacks onto the active roster. That's the way it's going to go. And then, say la vie, as they say on that one. And let me get up my list here and we can start kicking this off. Sorry about the little delay here. I had this thing, but I realized I messed up something right as I went live on this, where I went, oh yeah, I didn't do this one thing, which is I added a guy I shouldn't have added, which is never a good idea. So, okay. So final roster here. Let's get this brought up. I think this one's the one here. I know this is tremendously interesting to listen to here. All right, so let's go at this first, the quarterback. My opinion of this is that we're going to need to have the three guys on the roster active, and that means you are now kind of pulling from one of like last year and how you have to kind of offset this one a little bit. So you're looking at pulling there, in my opinion, with Darnold, Drew Lock, Milroe. Pretty straightforward. I don't think this part's anything of a surprise to you guys, but I know that's where the confusion was on this, is that somehow you would have a way of being able to sort of have just two guys active, and then you could still have Drew there. But it doesn't work that way unless you're going to sort of fake an injury, if you were. And then if you do that, you're then down to just that Drew Lock. If you tried to play that game, you couldn't come back to Milroe. He was injured. So both, they're both essentially inactive at that point. It's just probably likely they go to the three guys on the active roster with that. As far as your running backs, technically four with Robbie Utes on there as the fullback. I don't think they're going to keep four running backs. We saw last year you only kept three. I do believe you're going to keep two running backs actually onto the practice squad. So that's where you will still stash, I think, a couple of guys over there to that side of it. But, oh, goodness, yeah. And so then we get to wide receiver. And this is where I see the team. It's where we got the team going with, I see 6 wide receivers here. I think that the Bobo injury is not going to really change much of this, but I just kept coming down to the fact that team's probably likely to keep this extra guy here for special teams reasons as much as anything. We know that Smith and Jigba Cup, Horton's going to be making the roster, really is mainly receiver, punt returner. Scandling was the one that we were kind of wondering about, and we weren't too sure with what was going on there. And then you've got Bobo and Drake Young as another couple of special teams guys out of the mix, especially as gunners, especially as blockers on punt return. These kind of roles that are important, as well as guys that are, I think, developed into pretty good wide receivers. Scandling is the one you're unsure of. Certainly, maybe a trade possibility considering the high cost wide receivers have these kind of middle of the road wide receivers are going for here as we get down to the kind of deadline on this one. But I do think they keep 6. There is a chance here you just go with the 5. You end up moving of Marquez Valdez Scandling. I think if you're then looking at the extra guy that goes onto the roster, it is probably going to be Brady Russell. He'd be an inactive on game day. You wouldn't have 4 tight ends active, but you would essentially, I think, put him onto the roster as we saw in 2024 right here. You did have Brady Russell on that. He's another one of those guys that's a little bit of a under the radar special teams kind of guy. That's really, where he's at on it. So I was right on the line with having him make this active roster. I would have him on the practice squad, but that would be the guy maybe going out if Scandling is not going to go here. I see the team holding 3 tight ends, Elijah Arroyo, AJ Barner, Eric Saubert. Again, I think these are all pretty straightforward choices for you guys, and that you're all going probably nodding your head for the most part, where, yeah, I think that's probably the way they go. Brady Russell's is really the only one that you wonder about as to whether or not they're going to find a way to kind of slip him onto the roster or not. But I do feel pretty solid on these receivers. With Bobo, Derek Young, again, they do so many things for this team. And Derek Young had a really good game there, game 2 against the Chiefs, and really showed off some of what I think has been a little bit of an advancement as far as his route running goes. He is a guy that can give you some of that yak ability coming out of college. He was really, that guy, and that's how he was built to, go. They were just throwing in bubble screens and fly sweeps there on the highlights of his college film. So I think these guys can fill that role, and that's why they're mainly going to be there, not because you're going to need necessarily as much the wide receivers for how much you're going to throw it, but I just thought this is the way that they could probably lean towards a little bit. When it comes to the offensive line, I have them pretty much keeping the same number as to last year. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 offensive linemen. Last year we were at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And so this is one of the places that I did pull from just a little bit as far as my setup here goes. Some of last year and you doing that was, of course, though, you had the late hour of getting Connor Williams in there. And so you wanted to have a couple of those centers onto the roster because he was so late. He was coming off the knee injury. There was, I think, some extra reasons as to why you were keeping the 11 last year versus what I think is going to be the 10 this year. Cross, Jarrell, Josh Jones, Abraham Lucas, we're all lock solid in step on that one. No surprises there. Oluwatimi, Sundell, your two starting centers, a little bit of a Freudian slip there. But your two centers, no shocker there is how you're going to roll with that. Gray Zabel is your starting left guard. Christian Haynes, is he going to go a little bit on initial IR with the pectoral injury? And so maybe he doesn't have to count on the roster. Are they going to try to IR him for 4 weeks? Will he count on the roster, but he'll kind of go on the IR for that couple week period where he just won't be active? We'll see how they're going to kind of play it. We're not really sure. It sounds like when Mike McDonald talked about it a couple days ago, the pec wasn't as serious as they thought it might be. So that's probably at least a little bit of an encouraging note. And then the last two guys that I have making the roster here are definitely ones that are on shaky ground and I was not certain about. These were going to be guesses, and it's such a big guess I couldn't even spell Sa'atoa's first name right. But Sa'atoa, Lumea, Mason Richmond, the kid you took late in this last draft, both these guys you took late in the draft, the last two drafts, I've got them making the roster, but there is a man, a very big man, who sits there as a potential guy that you could flip out for one of these guys, and that is the man to my right here, your left, Dalton, the Risner. And so they might bring the Rizzler in here. We shall see. You would flip him out for one of Laamea and Richmond in Lumea's case. I just don't know if the pass blocking is to a place where they can trust him in game. And with Mason Richmond, he might be a little bit of a kind of tweener type guy. But you got to acknowledge the fact that he did outplay Bryce Cable-Dew here in the preseason. And you also have to probably acknowledge the fact here that the team doesn't necessarily feel great about the ground behind their starters. And if there's a potential to be able to improve that with a guy like Risner, that'll cost you a couple $1 million, probably worthwhile as an investment from an insurance policy standpoint, considering if you have to go to these guys like we saw in the last preseason game, we might be in for some rough waters. Maybe something that we want to try to, if we can, avoid. But Risner is a possibility. I know there are other folks out there thinking he's going to just be on the roster here. They're going to make that happen. We'll see with that. But he's a possibility, that is for sure. So those are the only linemen I have holding on. I think you've got your pretty steady Eddie guys in the spots in the 1-2, tackle, center. So I think it just draws less of a need there to kind of grab and hold on an extra guy. And I just don't think the talent's good enough for you to really want to facilitate it, where you're just like, why hold on to a guy like, Cable-Dew that you don't feel like gives you necessarily that much for it. And you can definitely get away with getting that guy into the practice squad. Yeah, he's going to certainly fit over there. As far as my edge goes, here we've got Boye Mafe, Derek Hall, DeMarcus Lawrence, Mike Morris, Jared Ivey as the 5 setup right now in my outlook of it. And again, going back to 2024, you had Travis Gibson, Derek Hall, Draymond Jones, Boye Mafe, Uchenna Nwosu, Mike Morris. So you had a solid 6 last year in how you were rolling it. I think you're going to try to kind of angle for that same sort of situation here a little bit, but I only went with 5, and I went with 5 for a particular reason. So it may seem a little bit odd on the surface of this, but there was an actual reason I went with this. I can bring up my my darn notes here. I can get my darn notes put up here. Okay, there we go. And the reason that I'm sorry, technical difficulties here. Stuff happens. Where was it? There we go. The reason I'm only carrying the 5, I didn't do what I wanted to do. Okay. Might have to do this a different way. We'll do it live. Here we go. All right. We'll do it this way. We'll do it with the Acrobata. For some reason, it's not showing up the way I wanted it to show up, so we'll just kind of fix it this way. Thank you for bearing with me. All right, so the reason I'm doing this is go, if you can, with your eyes to the inside linebacker position. So I go to 5 from 6 last year, because I think that the team's intention is going to be to keep Jamie Sharif on the roster at this point, because he can play then both edge and inside linebacker. You get a 2-for-1 with that guy. Mike McDonald has mentioned that he is their best inside blitzing linebacker on the team. My contention and my theory is that the team is going to blitz more this year. There's going to be more of those stacked boxes. I think there's a real possibility here you could find Sharif put into certain, sub-package roles just to be used in a lot of that fashion. You saw it last week in the Packer game when he was blitzed, that if you put him one-on-one against a running back, just think about it. If I take an edge and I get that guy with some build-up speed, and then he gets a running back trying to fill the hole to take him on, and that running back's used to take it on inside linebackers or safeties filling that blitz role, that pickup role. It's a really tough battle for that guy. He's going to get whooped probably likely, and you can really expose some offenses in their protections, especially if you have a running back that's not particularly good with doing that. So I feel like Jamie Sharif's then going to be able to give them that 6 edge, but the 2-for-1 as far as also being an inside linebacker there. As far as the defensive tackles go, I did go with the 5. Not sure on the health of Hankins. All the more reason you're probably going to have Peely make the roster. Peely didn't play this last week in the 3rd preseason game. Kind of felt like he's done enough. He's flashed all over through training camp, the scrimmage game, a couple of preseason games, the safety there against the Kansas City Chiefs. He's done enough. We don't need to play him in this game. That was kind of an indicator to me just a little bit. So I'm counting on them keeping 5. We'll see on the Hankins thing where that one goes exactly, because he hasn't played. We're not really sure about where his health is exactly at. Maybe they're just resting him to get him to game 1. Maybe that's what they had to do to talk him to come back. Like, all right, look, we know you don't want to do training camp, so just keep yourself in relatively good shape. Give us 10 snaps a game, and we'll call it good. But no other shockers there around that. Jaron Reed, Leonard Williams, Byron Murphy. You guys all know those are going to be the guys there. First 2 linebackers, Ernest Jones, Tyrese Knight. We're all in lockstep there. Patrick O'Connell is absolutely making this roster. He's really shown ability to me to play some Will, to play some Mike. A little bit of both on that side of it. Also going to be a guy that's going to be a really good special teams maven for you. Drake Thomas, another guy that's, can be a kind of sub guy for you, a little bit like Jamie Sharif. Those guys both have 2 different little skill sets that are very interesting in bringing this onto the team. And I think Mike likes this angle of it to where I can kind of get some sub-package roles for you depending on the opponent. So let's say you're playing an opponent a given week who has good protection, but then is going to really challenge you as far as in pass against the coverages and stuff and whatnot. And, you get him into the 3rd and 7s, 3rd and 8s, 3rd and 9s, and you can bring him in as a rotational guy into the field because he's a really great coverage linebacker. Conversely, if you go up against a team then that struggles a little bit against the blitzing and those stacked boxes and doesn't have a running back that likes to pick up the blitzes, and maybe they're not as good as attacking you as far as the passing attack goes, well, now maybe that's a week that you have Sharif active instead, and he's your sub-role player on that. But it gives Mike some versatility there to be able to kind of bounce around in that role a little bit and really kind of mold it to the type of opponent you may be playing week in and week out. And I think that there's going to be a bit of a draw in that with the inside linebackers. So I've got them keeping 5 at that point. The cornerbacks, much like last year, you kept 5. I think these 5 are pretty set in stone. I think all of these guys, you understand why they've done their job enough to keep the job, that nobody else has overtaken them. I think Demarion Williams has certainly done a real good camp out there, and he is tremendously competitive from the position. He's been an impressive kid, but I think these guys have done enough there. Nehemiah Pritchett's come forward as a player from last year. Even the reception he gave up against Matthew Golden yesterday wasn't that bad of a reception. He was tight in coverage. He got his head around. Wasn't a bad play at all, in my opinion. He also had an interception this preseason period. Josh Jobe had an interception this preseason period. Those guys have looked pretty solid for being the backups we're expecting them to be for the most part. And Griffin has looked pretty good coming back. I think he gave up the touchdown there to Romeo Doubs in the game yesterday, but he did have a good Packer practice. And by all accounts, he should be pretty solid as well for, again, that kind of more depth-ish piece. Because I think in all 3 of these cases, my, again, prediction on this is that you're going to take in Nick Mawari and probably move him in more of a slot role and then pump Devin Witherspoon to the outside, which means that you're not likely to necessarily be seeing a lot of Shaq Griffith, Nehemiah Pritchett, or Josh Jobe on the football field. Instead, it's going to be more of that's the package you kind of roll, especially when you go into nickel. And then when you're in base, you're in 2 tight end set type looks. I think you might even stay in that in kind of 2 tight end looks. That's the kind of benefit of Nick Mawari is you used to be able to take that slot, go to the 2 tight end looks. We're going to get more 12 personnel than ever before this year in NFL history. And so you could attack that real small slot that tended to be out there. At 5'8" and 185 pounds, can you take on a tight end and get off that block, and then can you still go make that tackle? Versus having a freak show like Mawari, 6'4", and good sized and can get off those blocks at tight ends and still go make that tackle, means you don't have to flip as much in your personnel playing and play out and how you kind of roll this. So these guys just need to be steady, and I think that they will be that indeed on what they bring. Free safety, again here, there's only one that you guys might have some contention with, and that's going to be Jarek Reed. But you've got Julian Love, Kobe Bryant, Jarek Reed, and Nick Imawari. Why did I go with Jarek Reed despite Tayakata having one of the crazier interceptions we've seen here in recent memory? And he was also, by the way, I think your highest graded guy on the defensive side of the ball was Akata from this last game. I think this one does just come down to special teams, and that we cannot toss special teams or defunct it or try to relegate it to a part of the team that isn't as big a mattering point as it once was. And we don't have to put it quite the opposite. Right now with what's happening in the NFL with the kickoff rules, with the 35-yard line, if you kick it back into the end zone, with that meaning there are going to be more kicks returned than ever before in recent years, that you need to have guys that are good and can do that job. And then you see on top of this, so it's a two thing. The first part is that, okay, naturally in the sport here where we're at, you've got to have guys that are good in doing it. You can't have guys like Tyron Bowden out there doing it against the Chiefs 2 weeks ago, where he tries to go play two-hand touch, leaves his lane, gives his lane pathway open because he can't push the guy out of bounds to his right. That's you can't afford to be trotting guys out there like that. You've got to have kind of dogs all the way along on that just naturally because of the extra returns that are going to come. Then in addition to this, we know there are a little bit of some struggles going on right now with the special teams unit. It's not in a maybe catastrophic state, but your ability to defend kickoffs and defend punt returns right now, a little bit of a question mark walking into the season. All that much more reason that you need guys like Jarek Reed that can go out there and get it done. Jarek, I think, gives you true ability to play free safety, strong safety, despite being a slight little bit of an undersized guy. He's a year removed from the ACL surgery, having that kind of full 2-year period to get back around on this one. That encourages me here. And so I think he makes the roster over Akata. I think Akata goes to the practice squad, but I think that he manages to slip down on there and make it happen on this one. And then special teams wise, you've got Chris Stoll, Jason Myers, and Michael Dixon. I have to make a live change here, which I'm not going to make with you guys because I already just did that. So let's go over here to the practice squad. I'm going to move one of these guys. Oh, there we go. That's the easiest one to do right there. So ignore this for a second because I've got to make one little change where I made a mistake. You think you got everything all good, and then you realize, no, I did not have this all good. But bear with me 1 second here. All right. See if we can open this up here. So we're going to put Russell over onto the practice squad. Of course, Charles Cross is not going to be on there. That's why I wanted to fix that. I can find my 2.0, which is not there. Okay. Cool. Nice. Come on, work for me here. Stuff always breaks down when you're a little bit live. That's the way it goes. All right. Well, you guys are just going to have to imagine. Just going to have to imagine on this one. So take out Charles Cross, put in Brady Russell there in your mind if you can for me. Thought I had that right, but live show, that's what happens. This is going to be my practice squad, though. You need to run the ball this year. You're going to want to have backs that are well instructed by Kubiak in the ways of how they need to run in this system. This can be a system you can plug and play guys, but I think that Kubiak would acknowledge that it's one that the more guys you can kind of have that know the details of how we want to run this scheme, the better, i.e., getting to a position where you're going to have to pull guys off the street is less advantageous probably than it's been before in that neighborhood. So I think in the case of both Damian Martinez and Jarcadia Wright, you're going to try to get both of these guys onto the practice squad, in my opinion, to make sure your running back room's steady because you only do have 3 running backs, too, on this actually active roster. And we know with Kenneth Walker's health, might help to have a little bit of extra RB health in the stable. My 2 wide receivers here, and I was not as sure on this one. These are ones I was hesitant to even do the practice squad because this is where you're definitely, to me, rolling the dice as to what the team's thinking. But Cody White, I think, has earned the practice squad spot. Ricky White, I'm not sure if he has. Didn't do a ton here in the preseason, but I'm just going to think he's done just enough on that. I think more enough than Broden has in that he can play special teams. He's got that track record going back to UNLV. Quite a good history of doing it, and I think that's going to be enough to allow him to edge that out so you've got that depth you can call upon if you need to for that role. Quinn Bohanna had himself a good training camp here at the defensive tackle position. I think he will be your only defensive tackle that you keep here onto the active roster. I got 2 safeties that you're going to pop onto here because you're only keeping 4 safeties on the roster in total. So Ty Akata, DeAnthony Bell, both make the practice squad. Bryce Cabledew gets on there as one of your offensive linemen. Federico Federico Maranges. I just want to say that name all day. There are your 2 offensive linemen that make it. You got your center, and then you've got essentially your backup kind of guardish guy. Hard to know if Cabledew's done enough as well. He's another one of those guys that's right on that line where you go, I think you need to put a little bit more work in here to steady this down, even to get a practice squad spot. But we'll see there. Demarion Williams, really impressive kid to me in this training camp. Seeing him in person on the field, watching him at the scrimmage game. I've just making plays, tight end coverage. There's a feisty, competitive kind of energy that you just want in cornerbacks. You got guys that might be really fast and athletic and super twitchy, but they don't quite give you the juice. They don't feel like they want it. And a guy like Demarion, he's a guy that does feel like when you watch him play, there's a sense of urgency there with him. And a guy that maybe you can call upon down the line is a guy that can kind of develop a little bit. But just love the way the kid goes about his business. I think that's going to resonate with the coaching staff. Probably want to have one extra cornerback on there too, because you're only keeping 5 on the front side of that. Then again, putting in Charles Cross's area here, put in Brady Russell. You're going to want to have a backup tight end. When you've got Arroyo on the active roster, that's your 1 H-back. And then you've got Saubert and you've got A.J. Barner as now your inline guys. So you're going to want to have 1 H-back type guy out there on the practice squad. So if anything happens with Arroyo, you don't have to go and sign a guy off the street to serve that position and role. Because I don't think Barners is naturally going to fit to being like a H-back type guy, a guy that you'd occasionally like to line up wide. I think Brady can do a little bit of that stuff, not to the degree of Arroyo by any means, but it just gives you a little bit of depth there to kind of work off of with that. So move off Charles Cross, put in Brady Russell there in that spot. And then the last guy I was really torn on, really uncertain on. I didn't have any other inside linebackers here that we had kept, quite a few there onto the active roster to the other side, including O'Connell, including Sharif. So I just went with Josh Ross. He's got the history with Mike McDonald. He gives him familiarity. He gives him a little bit of that warm, fuzzy feeling at night when he goes to bed that if anything goes on here with Tyree Snyder, Ernest Jones, he's got a guy who knows the system and scheme and what to do if he's got to put him in there, and he can be at least functional. So this would be my look on these guys. Certainly the practice squad, very little confidence when it comes to exactly those guys and how they'll fit that, because teams always get a little funky with it. There's a real high tendency to grab maybe a guy or two out there from other active rosters. John's always looking for a way to, be competitive and add on to the roster. So I really wouldn't be surprised if we're going to be doing something else in addition to all of this other stuff. But this is the active roster for me. You got your 3 quarterbacks going live here. Sam Darnold, Drew Lock, Jalen Milroe, your 4 running backs with Robbie Oots included in. Holani's done enough to, I think, secure that 3rd role. We're going kind of as a surprise on my list here because for a while I was only going to go with 5 wide receivers. Considering how much usage you're going to have of the tight end looks, considering how much you're going to want to run the ball, considering how little you're going to probably throw the ball versus how much you've thrown the ball in the past couple of years. It's a little bit of a draw to go to just 5 wide receivers, but I think that you kind of want to just hold on to Marquez as kind of that little bond in your back pocket for a rainy day. Stuff gets a little bit weird there with one of your other frontline guys that you can call upon a little bit of depth there. We're seeing right now a little bit of, with these trades here in this preseason period already with the wide receivers, that there's a little bit of some scarcity out there. There's a little bit of some desperation out there with some of these teams when it comes to wide receiver position. When you're seeing guys like Robbie Chosen still being one of the first guys called off the streets there, it's kind of an indicator here that we don't have the strongest of wide receiver rooms across the board here in the NFL as it currently stands. Elijah Arroyo, A.J. Barner, Saubert, tight end. I think that's very easy. The only question is, does Brady Russell make the roster like he did last season as the 4th guy? Charles Cross, Terrell Jones, Abraham Lucas, your 4 tackles. Oluwatimi Sundell as your 2 centers. Zabel, Haynes, Lamea, Richmond, your 4 guards, as I think it will stand. I've got 5 edges making the roster with Jared Ivey doing enough, especially in the back of another strong performance here in this final preseason game. Boye Mafe, Hall, Lawrence, all the guys there that you guys know on with that. So, this is kind of my list with that on the breakdown. Let me know what you guys think today. If you think I'm maybe off my rocker a little bit with this one, or maybe I missed somebody on this one that you feel like is going to be that guy. I think, though, that see if I can bring up the last one I was going to show real quick. I'm all out of sorts today, folks. I don't know what the hell's going on here. All right, that ain't it. That ain't it. Okay. Stuff goes slow and the computer's a mess. Computer's a mess right now. There we go. Or not. All right, well, you'll have to have watched it earlier. I'll just say it here. So I'm done with these titles here. So defensive tackle, Jaron Reed, Leonard Williams, Jonathan Hankins, Byron Murphy, Brandon Peely. Your defensive tackles, inside linebacker, Ernest Jones, Tyree Snipe, Patrick O'Connell, Drake Thomas, Jamie Sharif. And then cornerback, Woolen Witherspoon, Griffin Pritchett, Josh Jobe. So I don't think there's really any surprise on these defense outside of me bringing Jamie Sharif in here. I think everybody out there in the chat would say, yep, Thomas is going to do this for sure. O'Connell's going to do this for sure. They're going to be on the roster. It's just a question if you carry that fifth or not. The four safeties, Julian Love, Kobe Bryant, Jarek Reed, Nick Imawari. I think if you're not keeping Jarek Reed, it's going to be Ty Akata, but I feel like he's going to win out just because that's special teams play. And then the three special teamers, Stoll, Myers, Dixon. It's not a law firm, folks. That's your special teams core guys, and they're going to make the roster here too. But let me know. Let me know where you guys stand on this. I thank you guys for watching today. I appreciate all of the new subscribers, all of the great support yesterday. Had a great time with you guys, even though it was not the funnest of games to watch. But it was a pretty cool still final preseason game to kind of be able to check out, get into Milroe a little bit. Had some good moments in there. It was fun laughing with you guys and getting through the day. But I hope everybody's having a good one today. We're, again, going to be, I know I say this often, just kind of quick and in and out today because I've got a load of shows here for you this week. We're going to be back getting the Seahawks weekly rundown going through. We've got the NFC West Roundtable. We're going to be looking at the Seahawks Syndicate kicking off here on Wednesday. So be on the lookout for that. We've got the B&B show with some predictions this season, but we're going to be lining up quite a bit for you guys. So get ready. Season is on deck here. Fabrice says Parsons is stuck with the Cowgirls, playing on his current contract or holding out for the season. Yeah, I think the Cowboys are going to hardline this one. I don't think that they're in a position right now of feeling like they have to do anything, that they've got the leverage, and that Jerry is obviously playing a game that has nothing to do with trying to get a guy signed. He's thinking about other things and letting other things drive him. And at the end of the day, he does kind of have the leverage. He can kind of just force the player to be like, hey, we'll lose. I don't care. We'll lose. You're still mine. You're still mine, Micah. You're all mine still. You're all mine. He's like, what was that? Yosemite Sam or what was it? It's mine. It's mine. It's gonna be mine. Mine. It's like a little bit of that energy, you know? Pay him if you want him so bad. But it's a joke of an organization right now. And I'm trying not to enjoy the cowboy documentary on Netflix because it's basically a BJ to Jerry Jones. But it is kind of entertaining a little bit. They got more into some of the details on the Walker trade and stuff like that. They kind of glossed over some of it. SZ Koken says, how's the cat doing? What's her name again? So the orange one's name's Pumpkin, and she is sprawled out on the floor right now because it's a warm day, so she's trying to stay cool. And the other one's name is Xena, and she's out in the living room, I think, chilling out. They'll be back, I'm sure, at some point here during the stream. Sundell is not out. Nope, he's in. He's your starting center, as others are saying. I do believe that. Phoebe Moore Seahawks, thank you for the $2 donation. Oh, I didn't leave Bradford off the list? Yeah, see, I was trying to do this in the middle of the night fast, and I messed up multiple times over. Okay. So you would then take off Luamea, and Bradford would be the guy that would make it, on my opinion, on that then. So thank you for catching that. Good catch. So yeah, Luamea would be my cut guy, and Luamea would then probably go to the practice squad. Though that's not even a guarantee, because I think there's a real worry with Luamea at this point that pass protection's not going to come enough forward there from the guard position to be able to take advantage of what he can do as a run blocker. Again, though, this is sometimes such a tough guess on this stuff because you just don't know what's internally in the coaching staff's mind, especially for such a young player who's played so very little. But he hasn't been super impressive this preseason either. So thank you for the catch on that, man. Yeah, I'd bump him off. I'd probably put LeMay off, but I don't know if that would mean LeMay would necessarily go to then the practice. He'd probably fill in the Cable Lou's spot on the practice squad. But again, which one do they like better at this point? Which one do they feel better about developing into the future? I think that's almost kind of a coin flip from the coaching staff perspective. That's my bad. I did have Nwosu on there. So Nwosu was one of my edges on there. No, I didn't. Jeez, I made a lot of mistakes. Okay. I think they're going to I think the reason I left Nwosu off is I think that he's going to go into the 4-week thing. The 4-weeker where he's off the first 4 weeks of the season. And then they just have him set on a place of playing only, 13 games on the year. So I did that one actually on purpose. I don't think that they're going to having him not even at a place of practicing yet. That tells me he's probably not ready for game 1. And it probably means that he's not even in state for game 2. So then you just give him the extra 4 games, right? If you put him on IR, I think it's automatic 4. And then you can just bring him off then once he's good to kind of go. And he's fully healthy because he's just starting to run through some of the practice reps. So he makes the roster, but I think he goes the IR, which allows them to put an extra edge on things. Yeah, it's my Brad. I'm Bradford. Trying to put it together last night, quick after the game, and I started going cross. It's my bad. Was Peely a UDFA? Yes. USC. Bradford's my bad on that. I would think Bohanna would make the team over Hankins if you've got Peely also on the roster, Misfit. Thank you for 9 months as a Hawks Nest member. But with Nwosu, I think you're going to IR him initially. Or not IR him, but you have essentially, you bring him back off this deal, but you've got the 3 weeks. If it comes down to it, you just take off a Mike Morris or Jared Ivey at that point and put on Nwosu. And then this is a little bit like the prior one with it as to which of those 2 guys you'd be taking off. It's like the Bradford thing. We're taking off, and it comes down to Lamea or Cable. I don't know which one of those 2 that the team wants more. If it comes down to you looking at Jared Ivey and Mike Morris, I would think that Jared Ivey's given you a little bit more in his shorter time period, considering Morris has had a long period here to kind of show you a bit more, but Morris hasn't been bad either, and he's had some moments of flashing as well. So on both of those, I'm not too sure with how they'll play it. But if let's just say they want to go active with Nwosu, not knowing what their intention is, how long they're planning on having him sit out, remembering too with the Nwosu injury that this has been one where it's like he comes back last year, but then he's not quite healthy, and then he has the surgery, and then he's going to be good to go, but then they know he's going to need time in camp. And the team kind of plays this with their injuries to where this does make it hard on doing these like roster, projections. And part of why I try to do these kind of not too hard line because they don't give us the information. And so we're kind of trying to figure this out in the dark a little bit about like Nwosu could have his leg in a place where it's like, it's maybe going to come back. He goes out there and starts practicing and the issues from last year pop back up in the thing, but he's not practicing hard. He's not out there in pads. He's not out there letting it rip. He didn't play in any preseason games. So a little unsure on that one, but thank you for reminding me. Sorry about that, folks. That's my mistake there. Jeffrey Thistle, thank you for the $5 donation. Some acknowledgement for Cal Raleigh, setting a single-season Major League record for home runs by a catcher with his 49th. Well, yes, sir. Let's give our man a nice little applause for that. A little applause to Cal Raleigh. And a big shout out to Cal because here's a guy that, signs his contract this season at the beginning of the year. And human nature is you sign a big deal like that, you lose a little bit of your hunger when that occurs. And in Cal, that's not been the case. And that he's doing this from the catcher position, which is so very hard. And the reason you haven't had catchers hitting more than 48 home runs in any given year in Major League Baseball, despite having other positions from first base to third base to outfield that can go out there and hit anywhere from 50, 55 to 70, depending on how much roids you've taken. But it's so hard to do because you lose your legs, and you lose your legs over the course of the year doing all that squatting. You're down there all that time, and it's your legs that create the power there to be able to, create those home runs. And yet he's been able to still keep his legs. Team's done a good job of managing it. Helps when Dan Wilson, former catcher, is probably your coach, is to know when you need to be a DH in today versus when you need to be playing a catcher. But Cal has got a great swing, also can do it from both sides, left-handed, right-handed. And he's made this season so much even more funner than it would already be with you being in the playoff hunt, that you have a catcher doing something historic. And how many is he going to finish up with? I don't know. But he's already here at 49 on August 24th with a lot of games left to play. And maybe he can get up into that sort of 55, 60-ish territory when it's all said and done, which would be, that's an all-time season then. And that's all time. It's not, well, it's all time for this era. It's like, no, we're not in an era of home run balls. We're not in an era where you've got 5, 6 guys hitting over 50 home runs in a single season or something. It's a lot harder to get there now than it was back in the Royd era, essentially. But shout out to Cal, great teammate. And then on top of it all, Jeffrey, he's an outstanding defensive catcher. He gives you the full meal deal from the position. The man can even steal bases, which is just ridiculous from the catcher position too. So you got a great core here in Seattle. The future is really going to be bright. They made some trades at the deadline, but they didn't have to give up everything to make that happen. The future of their very deep farm system. And I think when that young talent comes up and matures in the right way, and you've already put Cal and Julio on some very good contracts for both team and player, both long-term deals as far as for team or player, everything's set up really nicely for this Mariner team into the future. And hopefully sooner or later, Jeffrey, Cal Raleigh is raising a World Series trophy, as you just want to see it with these guys because they're so very easy to root for. Julio, Cal, any of those guys in that clubhouse, Eugenio, JP, they seem like good guys, fun guys. Love the sport, it seems like. But shout out to Cal, Jeffrey, that's for sure. Yeah, guys, sorry about the list. Again, I'm trying to get this in before the cut deadline, and ended up getting some family commitments today that I had to jump into, and took away the time I normally have a chance to put into it. So hopefully you guys can forgive me. It seems like the comments are pretty angry at me at it. So I'm so sorry. The list wasn't perfect. We'll get this going through quick. Zach, people agree he makes the team. He made plays, but he still looks practice squad to me. It's one of those ones I think can go either way on it. I kind of want to do this show today, Zach, because it's a highly wanted to see show by many people. People are requesting it right and left to do it. But I do think on these lists a little bit, you got to take them with a grain of salt. And there is a little bit of the coin flip nature to the back end roster players, to these guys that we are guessing on. I will operate from the fact that if a guy comes into training camp and he's working his butt off and he looks good in training camp practices, again, just to say on this, I was in person getting to see the practices, got to see the scrimmage game. We've got to see the preseason game. We've got to see some of the stuff where it's more than just a one game off situation with the guy versus a guy, like I say, and if this is down to him and Morris, let's say, that it does feel like, he's done enough from a performative level. Now, maybe Morris gets an inroad because he's got the Michigan connection to Mike McDonald, and he's been here a couple of years, and the team just is infatuated still with the thought process that Morris will have this fully turn on and fully be able to realize some of the potential that exists in him, with that. But I think it's hard to say, Zach. I do. And I can understand completely in thinking that Jared would go to the practice squad because it could certainly play out that way when we come down to Tuesday. I think the one other part of this, though, Zach, that might make that hard is that maybe Jared has done enough in this era of teams needing edges all the time and decent edges at that maybe there's a team willing to bring him onto the active roster off the preseason performance too, which may drive some of the decision-making here as well. Jeffrey, thank you for the $2 donation. Appreciate you for that. Says, don't even know how to assess what we watched Saturday. I don't think that there's a big assessment in there outside of some of the individual performances of guys like an Ivy or Jamie Sharif, or, as Mike said, he wasn't going to make any basis of these guys on just this game alone. You've been craptastic through camp and you light the world on fire in that final Packer game. I'm not going to be giving you the benefit of the doubt on that. Like it's, you just can cement more of the good hard work you put in up until this point by going out there here in that game and doing what you do. And that's why I think with Jared Ivey and maybe Jamie Sharif with this too, is that these both are guys who have put in that good work at this point. But I think you're not assessing much as it concerns the team. You've got your quarterbacks coach calling the game. You do have a little bit of the starters at first for Green Bay that come out there, and then a little bit of a longer of their second string that's out there. First, you're out there with third and fourth stringers almost from the start across the board. I think that's worth weighing in. But it seems to me that just the energy from Mike McDonald coming into this game was just that I've seen what I need to see. I trust that I have prepared my team appropriately to be able to play my frontline guys, to be able to play and be able to play well game one. And that means I don't need this game. Then I got it done with 2, essentially. Yeah. Grant has a Federico Menages. You look marvelous. That's right. Reminds me of the Billy Crystal sketch. Fans since 76, Mike Morris and Jared Ivey will be on our squad somewhere. If they don't make the active roster, then yeah, you're looking at, I would think both of them over onto the practice squad, or one on practice squad, one on active roster. I do think there's a chance with 1 or 2 of them that there is also some team that might come in there to, there's a Coach Carroll that's, or not, maybe not Coach Carroll. Yeah, Coach Carroll had Morris here, I think. Yeah, he had it here for a year. So maybe he comes in there and hey, we'll get him onto the roster. We could use some big edges over here. I like what he brings. Carroll certainly likes his big edges too. Jeffrey, thank you for the $2 donation. Can kiss all national hype goodbye after Saturday, though. Yeah, that's okay, though. We don't need any national hype. We don't need anybody giving us any props. We don't need the respect. I just want us to be good. If we're good, then they can all sit there and I don't trust Seattle. They're 6-0. I don't know. 10-0. I'm not sure. I don't think they're going to all that good stuff. I just say, Jeffrey, let them squawk on that and just let us, at the end of the day, go out there and kick ass and take names, and that'll be rewarding enough. Jeff Jennings says, I'm pretty sure Hankins may get cut. Agreed. It's kind of weird that he hasn't played Jeff at all throughout training camp. And I have him on the roster, but that's one of those ones that I don't feel confident in. MVS gets traded, he says. Again, definitely I can see that too. And they put Martinez on. Martinez up because he will get poached off the practice squad. It's very possible. It's very possible. That's part of the reason that you took Damian Martinez in the 7th round, is you probably thought there were going to be teams that were going to sign him as an undrafted rookie free agent. And if they brought him onto the roster here, I wouldn't be completely blown away if they did that. And then they like enough in his game to do it. So I could see it going that way for sure. Jeff Jennings, thanks for the $2 donation, says Churro G. Bradford. Yeah, I meant to put him on there. Sorry about that, guys. I appreciate you guys letting me know on it, and thanks for letting me know on the donos too. I'm really sorry about that again. I tried to give this list some time and go through it a couple times, and I thought I had it right, but I was obviously eyes going across the middle of the night. Shouldn't be putting stuff together like that, but when you're a one-man band, man, it's hard, When you're the graphics guy, the audio guy, there's a lot of hats you got to wear, and you don't get them right all the time. So please forgive me. Please, folks, forgive me for not having the list perfect. Please. 19 Stray, thank you for the $5 donation. Rob Stanton is out on Milroe after yesterday. I think the whole offensive game plan was a complete failure from top to bottom. What are your thoughts? Thank you for the $5 donation. And thank you guys again for the notes on the fixes there. Bradford makes the roster, so he will absolutely be on the roster. I would kick off probably Lumea, but again, the coaching staff is really not giving us any indication about the low-end interior guards on this roster that they like or don't like. Don't know if they like Lumea, don't know if they like Richmond, don't know if they really like Cable Do, really. All those 3 guys kind of fit into the same kind of pile of kind of scrub-like play when it's all boiled down. So I just don't know with those ones where it goes. But Bradford's going to make the roster. He's your starting guard, so I really do apologize about that. Milroe. I think that there's a lot of people that found themselves out on Milroe after that game, that they got 4 quarters of that, and that they've seen enough from that standpoint to make their determinations. It's really hard ground for me to go into because there's a lot of this fan base, 19 Stray, that has been really, really pissed off by my evaluation of Milroe on draft day. I try not to delve into this territory too much because it just ends up coming off as a little bit of like I'm anti the kid, which is I'm really not. And I certainly wouldn't be out on the kid after yesterday in any respect of things. But what I think yesterday does represent to me is confirmation to the evaluation I made of him when he was taken in the draft, and one that may have gotten fans mad, but this is the reality of the situation, kind of as it's been confirmed on the whole to me in watching him not only in the preseason games, but in training camp. Has he improved himself and gotten better mechanically in certain respects since the draft in Alabama days? Certain respects, yes. There are still other things that are definitely works in progress and ever fluctuating as far as that mechanical stuff goes? Yeah, you better believe it. But with Milroe, it was never just about mechanical. That was never the basis of the evaluation. And part of the reason the evaluation was so hardline for me being that I don't know if he reaches that top side, number one. And number two, if he is going to reach that top side, you got to give him the 2 years to get there. And those were the two things that I was really as a tandem 1-2 with them that I was pretty ardent about. And the reason being is because there are those extra items on top of the mechanical. The mechanical would be enough in its own 19 straight to give him the 2 years he's going to need to develop. I mean, that just alone, give him 2 years. He's got a lot of stuff to fix there. Give him that time. But then there's the stuff head above and processing. And this is the one that is really the important one with Milroe that stood out with me, that had me concerned during the draft and doing the scouting process of watching 2 years worth of his games there at Alabama, was that when he gets back in the pocket, the processing isn't there. And people go, what is processing? It's multiple things. Processing is, yes, going through reads. That's processing. Processing is processing the time you have in the pocket. Processing how the pressure is operating around you. Processing if a guy's breaking open and truly breaking open free, or a route's going to get undercut if you try to let that thing rip. It is the in-play awareness, I guess you could call it too, in your ability to just be able to really go through and take all of this crazy data coming at you a million miles an hour, almost have it like they say the game slow down for you, parse that data through, translate it, and then be able to react to it all in kind of the blink of the eye. It's tough. Many of us would fail at doing it, probably myself included. So to be not necessarily a great processor isn't like you're not smart, you don't have the brain power. It's just it's a skill along with other skills of the quarterback position. But it's probably where Rob finds himself a little bit on this, and knowing, as I've asked many people on this 19 straight since we took Milroe, very many smart people that are football minds that watch this game, that people that are even experts at quarterback play, and saying, how many real success stories do you have of a guy who both mechanically has to come far forward and then processing has to come far forward? And we don't have too many of those. And that's what bore out kind of my evaluation and how I saw him, not on draft day, but as we were going through the draft process. I didn't arrive where I arrived on Milroe just because the Hawks happened to select him. I arrived on Milroe prior to us getting to the draft. And so I still find myself in the same place saying that it is, as EJ Snyder said a couple of months ago when I had him and interviewed him and asked him, another guy who wasn't really ready to go all forward in on, this guy's going to absolutely get this done. This guy's absolutely going to reach that high-end side. And he said, it's a lotto ticket. And that's what this is. It's a lotto ticket. Some Seahawks fans want it to be a Russell Wilson ticket. They want it to be that, hey, he's instantaneously going to rise up and go like Russ did. And this is a different player and a completely different one at that. And so he needs the 2 years, 19 straight, in my opinion. And as reticent as I may sound on Milroe, I'm still hopeful, and that you've kind of signed up for this. You draft him in the third round. You've signed up for that 2 year process. It's not even like you're signing up to start him for 2 years. You're just signing up for a 2 year process to let him develop, to see if he can reach that upside. And the upside on the other side of this is also very real. The upside of the huge ceiling and a guy that can be a potential top 5, top 6 quarterback in this sport is also very real. It's just he's got a long way to go to get there. And maybe the chances aren't as great as some people would like out there that he's going to get to that spot. That it's a little bit more less than maybe 50-50 that he gets there. But I think that's kind of what this is born out of 19 straight, is a little bit of some of the pressure for this guy to be good almost, instantaneously. I think as well, just one other thought, and thank you for your donation. I think the offensive game plan did not set up Milroe for success yesterday. I don't really like running him out there with the shotgun stuff. I would have liked to have seen him try to run out there with more of the under center stuff and running more of the typical Kubiak offense, having Kubiak call the plays. This is a preparation. This is a situation where you've given him one game for the next year that he goes back on and looks at, and he's going to look at and evaluate and, okay, I got this wrong, that wrong. I should have been doing this here and doing that there. Well, he's evaluating plays where he's in RPO kind of looks. Is that's what's best for him? Considering what you'd really like him to be doing is evaluations off under center, play action. That I would like to have filled a lot of it up with that to give him as much of those snaps as possible to kind of build on and learn from, because he's already run the RPO game. I think some of the lessons he's going to learn off the tape with that are lessons he's probably, in certain respects, already kind of learned when running those kind of plays, because they tend to be fairly simplistic. Read, pass, option, play. It's very simplistic. So I'm not out on him by any stretch of the mind, 19 stray, even if I'm not big on him at the time of the draft. And people have taken that as I'm somehow anti-Milroe, which I'm not. I want to be wrong on this. I want this kid to explode. I want this kid to be the best quarterback in the sport. I want to be lamenting the fact I got it so wrong. So I don't want that to be the case. And I do have hope that there's room here for success. It's the place I see both fans and coaches and front offices and teams in general across the league get wrong over and over again, which is that they don't want to have any patience for the quarterback position. That the guys have to be basically instantaneously good to some level, and if they're not, then they just are going to suck, and that you just throw them, toss them out into the trash and go look for the next one. And I'm more of the guy that says, well, give him a little bit of time. Kid's just a rookie. He's just arriving. He's a young kid at that. We knew he had a long way to go when he arrived. We knew on draft day he had a long way to go. And so I think even his ardent supporters would have said he has a long way to go. You got to give him some of that time. But that was a little bit of the sentiment that was out there from some of the Hawk fans after seeing the performance, and there were some rough spots. There just was. But it didn't surprise me, and it's a bit of kind of what I expected. A long answer there, but kind of what I expected with him as we came through with this, Jeff Jennings says Milroe will be fine. Vanilla scheme, Pinocchio calling plays, threes in the line, shotgun palooza. Other than the fumbles, what would you expect? Amen. Amen. Beautifully put on that. Just too many other things on that in addition that weren't going to set or make things in a good spot for him to really, and that's what kind of bothers me about it a little bit, is there's some things you could have done to allow him to get more out of the experience. And maybe you just wanted to protect your players and you were so worried about guys getting injured, and coaches get weird about that in this day and age. But as far as how that then helped Milroe, it didn't. Maybe it made your team healthier, but for the long-term development of Milroe, I don't know if it was the best for him on that. Mr. Dog, you'd already talked about Jared Ivey. I think he makes the roster. It's also one that's hard to say for sure on. Definitely hard to say for sure. Because you'd look at it on the outside looking in saying he's done everything he needs to do. I was very also high on him coming out of the draft. I had a 4th round grade on him. And that you go, okay, the guy's done enough to show you that he should have gotten drafted. That the whole reason he didn't get drafted came down to athletic testing numbers and not what the guy does on the football field. And that should be enough to allow him to make the roster. But the team can go some kind of kinky ways with this. They may be a bit higher on Mike Morris. They may feel like they don't have to go with an Ivy because they can bring on a Jamie Sharif and have him for the 2-for-1, and they can go one more less on the edge, and that can give them an opportunity to go one more with tight end or one more with running back. A little bit of the push-pull aspect of the roster right now, I would say. Jeffrey, thank you for the $5. Appreciate all the support today, Mr. Thistle. He says, they did a good job making it impossible to assess Jalen. Gave him the worst version of our offensive line and no real game plan against Green Bay starters. What to make of it? I don't know either on that. I'm not really sure what you were trying to accomplish with them, with, as he said above, as Jeff said above, the shotgun palooza, as it kind of felt like. It was just a bit of an oddity in the whole way you ran that out. And it was especially strange when you're seeing LaFleur over there playing this like this was the Super Bowl, 4th quarter of the Super Bowl in quarter 1. And you're going, meanwhile, you got a McDonald over there. I'm practically expecting him to crack open a can of beer. He's so chilled and relaxed over on the sideline. LaFleur's about to bust an aneurysm off the side of his skull on the other side. And that's part of what I was saying in my post-game breakdown to this, Jeffrey, was like, goodness, did we give it to him that well at practice the previous couple days, and that just pissed LaFleur off, and so he wants to go hard. And conversely, Mike's just like, we're good. We're perfectly fine. So I'm not sure, but I agree with your guys' assessment on this and looking at this and saying, look, there's a couple things that are tangible points here within this game that you want to give a rookie quarterback like this a little bit more help in how you set him up for what he's going to do. And it didn't quite feel like you did that across the board. The Janocko calling the plays too, I don't know the benefit there. I still have not had anybody mention to me what exactly is the upside to that. It's not the same thing as Dirty and McDonald calling plays. Because eventually the plan with McDonald is to let Dirty call the plays full time. They're in the point of transitioning to that spot of things. You're not transitioning to a spot where Andrew Janocko is going to take over the play calling for Kubiak unless Kubiak's got some head coaching gig in the horizon here 1 year out already. Mr. Dog's with me. He says, Ivy seems like he's going to get taken by another team if we don't keep him. That's a bit of my concern here, Mr. Dog. It's a little bit of my outlook on this one as well. You know? Old Greasy says, I've been a Seahawks fan since the day they started. We're never going to get respect. It's the only way I like it. See, I've embraced it too, Old Greasy, right? I'm baning this shit where it's like, you know, you just were in the darkness. I was born in this. Like, oh, you just fell into the criticism of your team not getting respect. I've lived here for 4 decades, bathed in it. So I'm in the same place. I think underdog is a better place for us to be. Flying under the radar is a better place for us to be. I don't know if we're kind of a front-running type city in our, like the way that we're wired and the teams are wired. But this is also where I say, and I see so much fan, and it would be the one thing I think if I could tell fans to, like, you know, take this sword from these people's hand, take the sword from the national pundits' hand. Like, why are we giving these people any respect for what they say? Or because in itself, when you take offense to them saying Seattle's 23, it sort of in itself is inferred then that you find value and weight within their opinion. But if somebody is so stupid in how their assessment is of your football team, then they maybe don't have the best of football minds, and maybe they don't deserve your football attention, and maybe at the end of the day, their opinion isn't worth a hell of a lot. And I think that a lot of folks out there, because there's a lot of consternation on this that I see a lot of my chat talked about, where people really get up in arms on this. You know, ESPN power ranking list came out. This thing came out and they had us down here. This list had us on this group and they had us down there. And I go, when you see it so much at this point, you guys have to understand that it's just kind of part and parcel for the normal way that the national perspective is going to operate. Doesn't mean it's accurate. Doesn't mean that they've got a good view of us. Quite the opposite. It means that they're barely paying attention to us, that they took a surface look at us and then they went on to the next thing. So don't give it much acclaim. Don't give it much onus. Don't let it bother you in any way, because you're basically paying attention to morons then. You're paying attention to football idiots. You're paying attention to guys that can probably barely be bothered to watch the sport. And so why give those guys your time? Why give them any of it? Just throw it into the trash the second you hear it, because that's about all it's worth, in my opinion. You don't have to do it this way, but again, I go greasy like you say with it. I've seen it for so many years on it. It's not going away. The national media is not waking up in 2026 and suddenly Seattle is the great football mecca that we're going to give it the respect for needing to be. It's like we're always going to be short-sold a little bit because of where we are geographically in the country. It's the nature of the beast. Brian E. says, I think Mike McDonald wasn't really expecting Milroe to light it up. He just needed to see that what he had with the players that probably hadn't played it down in the first 2 games. Yeah, maybe so there. Maybe so. I certainly think there wasn't to your point on this, I don't think there was a real big point of assessment on Milroe at this point. That they know what they have in Milroe. They know where he's at in his development, where he needs to go. As you hear McDonald talk about him, it's talking about him like it's a guy that is talking about a guy that's like at the beginning of his journey. You know, not a guy that's got the starting job in the sight line, but a guy that's in the beginning steps of the process of that journey to get to where he's going. And that's part of that long-term thing that I say about that. I think McDonald's really understood that. I think this organization really understands being that we've got to give this kid time, and that there's a lot of success stories in this NFL when you give players the time to develop, where they can, you know, fix a lot of things. They can correct items that are not good in their game. But if you throw them out there, or you get the pressure under them, or you get them pushed along to where you're trying to rush it, that can make it go sideways quick. And I think our organizations realize this, and that's part of why they're so strongly in the position of we're going to give him the time to go where we're going to give him the time he's going to need to get where he's going. Jeff Jennings says Cal's a platinum glove catcher. If they actually judged MVP as a complete player, Judge wouldn't be in it. Yeah, it's the part that kind of bothers me with the MVP talk too, because you come back to Judge and you go, okay, averages up, draws some more walks. I mean, part of the draw and the walks thing to me is a little bit of having lineup protection. Cal Raleigh hasn't had always lineup protection here throughout this year. But then Judge doesn't play defense. I mean, he's about this close to just turning into a full-time DH. And you watch him try to track balls in the outfield, and it's pretty brutal. And so I think that's a part that should factor in much more heavy. And if, in my opinion, you have Cal Raleigh go out there and hit 265 and he drops 56, 57 bombs this year, and he plays Gold Glove catching, and he's going to end up with like 20 stolen bases. Come on, he's got to get the MVP at that point, in my opinion. He just an all-time for that position. He just blew out the home runs for a catcher alone, say nothing of the defense, by like 10 or 11 home runs by the end of the year. Like that's got to mean something a little bit extra versus the guy that plays well below porous defense in right field, who's also not necessarily super fast either. So I don't know. But then you got, again, the same bias I'm talking about with our Seahawks does exist even in baseball. And certainly you're going to have a player that's a New York Yankee on the East Coast up against a Seattle Mariner on the West Coast. Tale as old as time, unfortunately. I don't like it, but the reality of it is true as far as it can be, Can't do nothing about it. Feed More Seahawks, thank you for the $2 donation. He says, most reports have Juwan Jennings on IR to start the season. Juwan Jennings reports are getting a little bit spicy. We've got, with him trying to kind of do some he's trying to do some of the social media let me out kind of thing going on there with him a little bit. And okay. And you get, Grant Cohn intimating a little bit, maybe there's a trade possibility here. They just don't have the money to give him, and he's going to hold in. He's going to force their hand. Maybe there's a guy in Juwan Jennings next couple of days might be traded in that way. When it comes to week one and whether he starts on IR or not, or he's just not ready to play week one, which Shanahan has said he's supposed to be ready week one. But again, Shanahan's also been known for being a guy that can kind of say one thing and end up doing something else. So he hasn't practiced, hasn't been a part of training camp, has basically been holding in. You are now going to put that guy into pads and still haven't done it at this point, but you're putting him in pads for the first time when you're going to do inside of 2 weeks of him starting a football game, and not just starting a football game, but you're going to lean on him heavily because the rest of your receiving core has been decimated. If they started the season today, I think it's Chosen's going to be one of your starting wide receivers, and Parasol, who should be in the slot, is going to be one of your other starting outside wide receivers. Niners are in a real big pickle for week one when it comes to that position. And the Juwan Jennings might be that domino that just drops out on him and really puts him in that tough predicament, because Ayuk is not going to be, of course, ready. Josh says there's no way they put Jennings on IR. They really can't without making it season-ending IR. Ew. That's tough. Michelle Maccabi, would he have survived mentally? Milroe made mistakes, but he never cracked. That matters. Yeah, that's the part of this where I say, and it's the part you try to always get to, Michelle, with this on the nuance spot. And of course, football takes, and this is part of the ESPN culture they've created out there, I think, within fandoms, which is that there is no room for nuance. You're with me or you're against me. Binary, everything's yes or no. I really like it better when there's more of that room for us to get a little bit more into kind of a gray area, because I think so much of the truth often, when it comes to this stuff, sits in the gray. And so, when it comes to the Jalen Milroe, yeah, I don't have a track record of a lot of guys overcoming the things that he's going to need to overcome on the football field to find success with the high upside he possesses. But you touch on something that's a factor of what helps him get along the way. So you have this assessment of a guy. and you make this kind of assessment, let's say in a vacuum. I have this kind of player with this kind of skill set, processing, mechanics. Got a lot here that I've got to kind of get fixed up. Okay, that's our reality of life we're living in. Now, there are things I can do to grease the wheels and make that process easier and better for him to potentially resolve those issues. And what are those things? Giving him a couple of years, not putting him in a forced situation to go out and have to play immediately, and not allowing him to, reinforce the muscle memory of the mechanics and to get better mentally from the neck up, which just takes you watching film hour after hour after hour. So you're giving him that stuff. Then there are those other things that I would say that are items that are outside of the team's control here, Michelle, which are also extra items that when we're talking about the vacuum of the player that's got to work on that stuff, if I have a guy that's a hyper-talented guy that comes into the NFL that's got to really work on his mechanics front to back, a lot of times if I look at that guy, I'm looking at a guy that's not really a sound worker, not a hard worker, not a nose to the grindstone kind of cat. But with Jalen Milroe, to your point on this, he is a guy that is that kind of guy and how he's wired. He is going to put the hours in. He is going to put the work in. So we've got the front office and the coaching staff doing this stuff with the grease the wheels aspect of it. We've got his work ethic aspect, the background he comes from, the military family, the way he was raised right, and his way to prepare him to be, the adult he is, to be able to take advantage of this situation in all the ways within his control. And that's what it seems like he's doing right now. And you talk about as well, the strength mentally, how you hear him talking after that press conference, after having a tough day. It's nothing but positive. It's nothing but even keeled. It's nothing but on to kind of the next. These are all little things individually that collectively help him along and aid him in a process where for so many, they would run into a wall and they just could not press past it. And you give him that 2 years and you give him the great environment to mature in, and that we understand what we got to give you. We understand the time you need. He trusts in that hard work. He trusts in the fact that I'll do this today, and then I'm going to work out tomorrow, and tomorrow I'm still not going to be good at it. And I'm going to come back the third day and I'm still not going to be good at it. I'm going to come back the fourth day and I'm still not going to be good at it, but I'm going to keep going at that. And you know what's going to happen? 4 months down the line, I'm going to start to get good at it. A year and a half down the line, I might start getting closer to almost mastering it. So you're absolutely right, Michelle. I think he's got this stuff. He's got the goods. He's got the mental acuity. He's got the mental fortitude to be able to get here on this. And if you look at that kind of player, they would more often than not say have no chance to get there. They would be missing a lot of these items that restrict them from getting to that upside. But Milroe doesn't. I don't think he's restricted on that stuff. And so it's part of what makes him such a tough story, and part of why I think for anybody and wherever your evaluation is, it'd be very easy for me right now to say, well, had my evaluation was where the draft, he'll never get any better. I'm completely right on this one. I've maintained I'm still right on. It'd be very easy to do that, but I don't think that. I don't believe that. I think he has shown something here. I think that work ethic is worth something. I think the background is worth something. I think the fortitude is worth something. And if you give him that time, maybe we just get the benefits of that if we can just be a little bit patient with it. So great point there, Michelle. Agreed 100%. 100%. Charlie, the unicorn. How Richardson was handled in the Colts, terrible. How Seahawks are handling Milroe, perfect. 100%, Charlie. Some great thoughts from you guys within the chat, but you always are bringing that. You always guys have the goods in that respective things. And that's a very important point here, because anybody that's followed this channel the past couple of years knows I have been very anti the Colts approach. I've been very consistent in how I've talked about these kind of quarterbacks because they are similar. They're similar talents. They're similar talents that have two different pathways, two different organizations, and how they're going to try to get to those talents and reach those. And the Colts have been openly, and from day one with Anthony Richardson, morons in their approach. It is stupid town all the way. I look at the Colts. I watch the Colts, and I can only say,
everybody knows you never go full retard.
Because they had no patience with Anthony Richardson. They had no plan with Anthony Richardson. They did the same thing with Anthony Richardson that they did with Andrew Luck. They caused eventually Andrew Luck to retire early because some organizations just refuse to learn their lessons. They just can't figure it out, even when it's slapping them right in the face. But you're absolutely right, Charlie. Seahawks are handling Milroe perfectly, smartly. They've had a plan. They're implementing that plan. Everything about the process through this has not been, Oh, is there going to be a quarterback battle between Milroe and Darnold? No, he needs 2 years. Shut up. That's kind of like what McDonald was telling Salk when he asked him that question. Shut up. No, it's dumb. It's ridiculous. You need to give him the 2 years. He needs the time. Give him the time. So it's very smart. Perfect, a good way to put it, Charlie. And it's a necessity if you want to get to that upside of this kid. Really well said on your guys' part. Zach says if Nwosu goes to IR, starts to make sense to keep Ivy on active. I don't know if I trust him to keep up with the NFL starters. He looks a little slow and gets over his skis at times. Seems smart instinctually, though. He's definitely got still some ways to go, Ivy. I mean, he's a rookie in a lot of ways. And I think, Zach, if you're bringing him out there early on, you're going to look for him to be an early down run defender. Essentially the role you would be putting Ivy into if he was going to be the active guy over Morris, because it's going to be one of Morris or Ivy that is this guy then, if Nwosu is going to go on the inactive for a couple of weeks to start things off. And that would be that he'd be your early rundown defender, your power edge, and then come off the field on knowing passing downs. I think that's the role he fits into there. Sort of the Trevis Gibson, Roy Robertson Harris kind of role of last year. And with his size, I think he can do some good things within that, Zach. He's not going to dominate there, to your point with that. And the slow aspect, that's why he went undrafted, is that he had a really low RAS score. He's not an explosive kid on that. But he's a gamer, he's big, he's strong, and he definitely is a little bit of a technician with his hands at times and knowing how to use those. And that combination of goods helps him out quite a bit to being able to make him a problem off the edge. Jeff says, I'm wondering if Cross's hand will be a problem game one. I don't think so. I think you probably just have him on some kind of cast up to where he'll be protected through. And, those offensive linemen, Jeff, when they go through the season are oftentimes taping up one finger or another, and it's becoming one finger. And, they turn into basically crabs by the end of the year, a lot of them. So I think it'll probably be okay. Jeffrey says, I did not think Federico counted because he's on the pathway program. Oh, good point, Jeffrey. God, you guys are on it. I completely forgot about that. Isn't that? Yeah, because he's part of the foreign additions. He doesn't technically, I think, count on the practice squad. There's some little small clause within the rules on that. Oh, we got a couple donations. Sorry, here. A few more Seahawks. Oh, sorry. Randall McDaniel in the house. What's up, Randall? Says, thank you for the fiver. Quarterback entire future should be based off one thing only. The one thing is the third preseason game. That's the fork in the road of one's career. End of story. Randall with the sarcasm button turned very firmly on with that post, and I appreciate that. And yeah, it's just not it's weird, but it is the way it's kind of gone off that preseason game there with Milroe, as you saw so many out on him where, you almost kind of wonder in the same point. It's like, well, as hard as you are out on him, if he'd gone out there and thrown for 230, 250 yards and been just solid, then you're all in on him just off that performance then too. Neither end of that makes sense. And another place where McDonald just so often you nod your head and go, smart coaching staff. It's like talking about yesterday where he gets asked a question about individual players. He's like, look, you're coming to the third preseason game and you're making your assessment of a guy. Haven't done a very good job of making your assessment up until that point because you have all these practices, you got OTAs, you got other preseason games, you got the scrimmage. It's much more data than just this one game to make your basis off of. Doesn't mean the game isn't worth nothing and that there isn't a reason for it to, have some weight to it, but you don't want to be carrying too much weight either, to your point on that, Randall. Well said. Deron J says Hendon Hooker was drafted in the third round. It's a lottery pick that you wait on and evaluate for his rookie contract. Why is this a big deal? Amen, Deron. And I don't think it is a big deal. I think it's just what's happened is that so many people kind of had decided their mind that Milroe is going to make this Russell Wilson leap. And I think it more speaks to a bit of the specialness of Russell Wilson. And this should be maybe more of an opportunity to appreciate Russell and what he had done to make sure he was prepared for his NFL opportunity when he came into the league. But Russell also came from a background that was different than Jalen. He didn't play in an air raid offense in his final year. Russell got to play in a pro-style offense with Brett Bielema out there at Wisconsin. He was doing actual under center stuff and working on that throughout the year there at Wisconsin. It was preparing him for the NFL game. He was an older prospect than Milroe. He had more time in college to get himself better, mechanically, physically. And so when you move that, I think it's that comparison that is why this has been drawn so hard to Ron, but to your point, it shouldn't be. And I think the Hendon Hooker one is a right one. Hendon Hooker taken out of Tennessee, torn ACL. Don't know if he's going to come back from that. You liked how his talent, he was really on his way at that year of maybe elevating himself up even into potential first-round stock with the season he was starting to have before the torn ACL. But then it happened, and now it's become a little bit of a gamble. And as you say, that's where the lottery pick comes in. And lottery picks don't tend to pay off. But if they do, you're swimming in it. Misfit says a developmental quarterback prospect needs development? Weird. Charlie says 3 running backs, fullbacks, 4 running backs, 1 fullback, or 3 running backs and 2 fullbacks. I'm going to go with 3-1. 3 running backs and Robbie Oots is how I will have it go. But there is a possibility to go with 1 more running back, I would say. If it wasn't that, it would be 1 more running back. Huey says they set up Milroe to fail, too much shotgun and not the real play caller. Don't know what the team gained from those decisions. I share all of those thoughts all the way down the line, Huey. All the way down the line. The play caller one just doesn't make sense to me at all. That's the one especially where I go, he's a new coordinator. It's not like you have your OC here for 5 years and he's having his quarterback coach and everybody already knows and blah, 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 right? It's like, this is all new. It's all new. Let's just have the same guy call the plays, please. We don't have 4 preseason games. We got 3. Let's have the same guy call the same plays, please. There's no reason to have this Andrew guy calling the plays. And the shotgun stuff was just like, what? Huh? Nick says, is it possible Kubiak has some plays in mind for Milroe they will run during the regular season? So instead of showing them off, they had somebody else call the plays for him. Yes, I do think that there's going to be specialty plays we haven't seen that Milroe's definitely going to come in there for those sub packages. I do. And they'll catch a lot of people off guard. And it's going to be, I think it's going to be stuff like just kind of off the wall stuff at times. Like, I think that they're going to come out there in the tush push looks, and something they did at Alabama is they'd come out in a tush push look with Milroe, and then they would hike it and the defense would all collapse down into the A gap. Milroe would take a couple side steps and then hit the injector button and go right up the field off of like the B gap. I think they'll do stuff like that. Yeah. But I don't know if that they were doing was hiding some of that, because to me, Nick, what you could have done is just run the normal offense, run the under center stuff. You could have leaned into a lot of it being still very run heavy, where it's minimizing some of his passing attempts. But for instance, part of the thing I didn't understand that we didn't get to see is the prior week, I did a whole video on my clips channel about all of those nice, easy throws out into the flat, rolling out to the left, to the right, quick, snappy little throws out to the tight end in space where they're wide open because the defense has collapsed on the running game that you didn't run because you ran play action. Where was that stuff? Where did all that go? What happened to that? I kind of was like, yikes. It's just weird you took all that out, because Milroe could have used some of those easy completions yesterday. He could have used a little rolling out in space and a little 5-yard flick to the tight end for an easy 9-yard gain. Now, maybe they're just hiding the whole playbook a little bit and how they wanted to run at that point. And they just said, no, we don't want to show anything else. But yeah, I'm not sure on that one, Nick. I don't know. I can definitely get it if you'd want to hide those packages, but I don't know the hiding then of the other stuff that you do normally. Someone else said, though, maybe some of this is just that was what he was comfortable running and that he's still really coming along with this offense. But then even that, I go, well, he was running it pretty well through the first 2 weeks of the preseason. You weren't having him do that much shotgun stuff through the first 2 weeks when he was coming into the third quarter. I can't make much heads or tails of it, really. Dogzilla, what have Emma Wari or Arroyo done so far? Not much, but I mean, they've been in there for like 8 snaps a game. So you're not giving them a lot of run. Teams doing the old, it's the bubble wrap approach right now. Like Elijah Arroyo didn't even play in this last game. And I don't think Mawari played either. That's that part of that thinking I have on this, that McDonald approached this third preseason game, Dogzilla, and whether we agree with it or not, or from our perspective, if we hadn't seen more or not, his perspective on it was that I've seen enough from these players. I don't really have guys at this point outside of a guy here and a guy there that I really need to have prove to me much else in what they are or are not. He gave that as a pretty strong indicator as far as where he's at on, those players and the team in general on this, by who started and who didn't. Yeah. Rain says upside is now they know Janoko should never ever call a single play again. Preach, Rain, preach. Oh, goodness. Misfits with me. He's like, McDonald didn't give an F about this game. He didn't, man. Like, I feel like you could do a back and forth on the sidelines. I should do this for a skip of the channel where it's like one sideline, I've got LaFleur over there, face red, screaming at officials, over signaling, telegraphing his timeout. What are you doing? What are you doing? Then you cut over to Mike McDonald. He's he's sitting up on the back of like a cooler over there, just off the sideline. He's just kind of nodding, smiling with the guys. BSing. Cut back over to LaFleur. Back over to McDonald. What? Huh? What we got? Oh, yeah, you got it. Oh, yeah, you got it. You got it. It's fine. It's fine. It's all right. Shotgun. Yeah, sure. Roll it. All good. That's how I picture in the game watching the two of them. Because Mike was just, and Mike's not a smiler. They cut to Mike usually on the sideline and he's deep in thought. Usually the frowns kind of edge down here. He's not necessarily got the fire intensity. It's more of that quiet smoldering thing going, But the frown, when the frown's locking in, he's in, He's intense with it with his Mike. So. But he's over there all smiles on the Packer over there on Lambeau. He was all good. I think you're onto something there, Misfit. Smeagol says, Janoko wants to prove he can be an OC. Laughing out loud. Not a great first step, Mr. Janoko. Carmen, I just joined. What were your predictions at safety? Well, you'll know with this, Carmen, we're for sure locked in with the three that we know are making the roster. You're only going to probably carry 4. 3 that make the roster: Emawari, Love, Kobe Bryant. All there. I think it comes down to 2 guys on the final spot. Is it going to be Jarek Reed or is it going to be Ty Akata? And I went with Jarek Reed because I think that they're both even Steven on this, but I think Jarek Reed is a little bit of a better special teams player than Akata is. And that allows him to win the job because that's going to be the role of that backup safety mainly here is, to play that special teams. I think if you had to go to, and that's why I think Akata makes the practice squad too, Carmen, because I think if you actually needed a guy to start games and be playing kind of 24/7 for you, probably Ty Akata is your guy more for that. But being that you got your starters, you got Emawari as the first guy off the bench, to me, that just gives you much more of the inroads to playing the guy that's the better special teamer. Misfit says, thankfully, the slow season's almost over. We're just about there, man. One more bye week, and then we are going to be rolling. It's been a long off season, especially as we have the anticipation for expecting and hoping for something that's going to be really good this year. Herbside says, well, that was cool. I walked down to get my pizza and saw 3 ospreys. Seahawks, I'm going to take that as a good sign. Yeah, I got some hawks around me too, which is kind of cool. When I go out and walk every once in a while, they'll be up just kind of floating around. It's always cool. You dig it. I'm like, yeah. He says, national press didn't pay any attention to the Seahawks when they were loaded with Hall of Famers dominating the division. So, of course, they're ignoring them now. Yeah. That's the thing I go to, and I can get it if you want to be frustrated with it. It's one of those things I tell you to, like, I'm a big guy, and if you be frustrated with something, be frustrated with something that can be fixed or changed or altered. And when it comes to this, you have a rightful point to be frustrated with sometimes how the national perspective will look at the sports teams. I mean, the Washington Huskies made the national title game 2 years ago, right? How many people in the publication business prior to the season were really giving Washington that kind of credence to be able to be that team that could do that? It was more about Oregon. out there in the Pac-12 at that time, right? And this is the way it goes. And it does suck. There is a good reason for it. They're 3 hours ahead out there. The media is mainly driven by mainly East Coast of bias. There are more East Coast writers than there's going to be West Coast writers. So this is just the way it kind of goes. And you can be mad at it, but it is not changing. It's not going to change in 2030. It's not going to change in 2035. It's not going to change in 2040. As Huey says, you can have a Super Bowl ready-made roster, and you're still probably not going to get as much heat as a Dallas Cowboy roster that's not going to even be so much as winning a playoff game that year will get going through training camp. And that's just the way that it rolls. You know, it's just the way it kind of rolls. Hope it was good pizza, Herbicide. Charlie Unicorn, 49ers are cooked. They're not in good shape right now. And the Juwan Jennings thing is a horrible piece of timing here. Just awful with the wide receiver epidemic issue of injuries they've got going on that side of the ball. They're probably going to be without Dominic Pooney the first game. No Malik Mustafa, the safety who played really well for them last year. They're on the edge of cutting Jair Brown, the kid they took a couple years ago. They're not loving his play out there. They lost Dre Greenlaw. They lost Hufunga this offseason. They lost Javarius Ward this offseason. Their running back room's got injuries all over the place. Garendo's having like 3 fumbles a freaking practice right now. Maybe they pull it off week 1 with the Niner mystique. Maybe that's just enough to do it. But coming into our house, they are limping. They've got a broken rib. You know, they're going to have to just be like trying to throw haymakers the whole game to try to get this one to happen, because I feel like we can just kind of take them into deep waters and just kind of lean on their lack of depth throughout that game. Like, all right, Bosa will make his plays. Okay, Christian will make his plays. But we keep them kind of contained a little bit. You ain't going to have a lot else out there you're going to be able to really call upon. Huey says the rest of the country barely remembers that Seattle exists. The place where they throw the fish is all they know. It's true. It's considered Southern Alaska by some folks out there in the East Coast. Kev, sorry I had that Charles Cross in the practice squad. I messed up I completely messed up my whole thing. My whole list got messed up. So sometimes that's the downside of doing a live show, is you get your graphics wrong and you can't really get them corrected in live real time. Kind of do it like this, I guess, here. Just thought of a nice quick way I can kind of do this. So this would be more of my practice squad right here. I'm like Damian Martinez, Jarcadia Wright, Cody White, Ricky White, Quinn Bohanna, Anthony Bell, Tyakata, Cable Dew. I think Cable Dew would probably be flexed out for probably a Richmond or a Sato Lamea, because I have Bradford making the roster the other side, but hard to say on that. Kind of pick one of your 3 on that. You know, flip a 3-headed coin, and one of those guys is going to make it. Moranges, your center, will make the practice squad. Demarion Williams, the cornerback. I think Brady Russell has a chance to make the actual active roster, but instead I think he will get to the practice squad. And then Josh Ross is the final true practice squad guy I had. But my bad on that, Kev. I thought I had the list right and I double checked it, but I totally glossed over that mistake. My bad. Mr. Placed says, the real question is, did Milroe show enough to enable the coaches to trust him on 3rd and shorts, or just trust Donald DeFon, JSN, or Cup on those critical 3rd and 4th downs? I think that they're going to trust him on the quarterback keepers, because I think that he can really give you some similarities to Jalen Hurts in the tush-push kind of plays. Everybody kind of wants to give the credit to the Eagles and their ability to win the low-leverage torpedo wars at the line, that they've got the guys that can put their hands in some butts and get deep into those butts and push that butt. Like each guy gets a cheek, and he's got that cheek better than other teams get their cheeks. and they're pushing those cheeks and they're clapping those cheeks, and they're getting the first down off that. But it's really in part and parcel here the fact that you have in Jalen Hurts a guy that's basically a quarterback that's built like a running back, and a guy that squats 500 pounds. And so you're in just like you're in those tight confines, and you have a defensive tackle pulling on you, and you're pressing, and it's like the same kind of motion of what a squat rack kind of machine would be. And that's where he really gets to utilize that kind of super skill he's got to get them that first down. And I think there's some stuff in Hurts that's got the same stuff. You can feel it in a couple of the keepers he's had this preseason, where he's not just barely getting the keeper, he's getting the keeper by like 1.5 yards extra. It's part of the problem with the fumble last week or yesterday, was that he, I think, should have just needed to go down, and he kind of kept his feet, and then the defense kind of holds him up and rips the ball out. He'll learn on that one. But I think that can be a very big, dangerous weapon to be able to bring out on teams over and over again when you get in those third and shorts. And because this team's going to be trying to move the chains a lot, you're going to get in a lot of those kind of third and half a yard, third and 1 yard. So I think that at the very least with Milroe this year, you're going to get a good amount of that package type out there, Mr. Placed. Milroe needs time, plus a heavy run with play action where he can use his mobility and throw on the run ability. Amen. Agreed. 100% agreed. Mr. Dogger coin can still land on its side sometimes. That's true. That is true. Greg Kemp in the house. What's up, Greg? What's up, Brando? I haven't been able to watch your lives or be in the chat since the draft because my aunt had a stroke. I'm sorry about that, and had to move in with me while she goes through physical therapy and tries to recover. I hope she's getting better out there, Greg. That's tough. Strokes are really rough. I gotta say, man, that's a tough hand that life deals you when it does deal you those. So hopefully she's getting better, and it's good on you. Good on you being a good relative out there helping out. You know, that's what family should do. So props to you on that. But it's good to have you in the house. Pre-fight donut. Have the Colts ever really developed a quarterback? Peyton and Luck were pretty much self-developed. No, they haven't. No. Yeah, I agree. Both of those particular quarterbacks were as well developed and well prepared as any quarterbacks that we've had come into this league over the last 30 years, to your point. So no, they have not. And remembering with what happened with Richardson only happened after they tried to microwave their way to the next franchise quarterback. Oh, it's going to be Phillip Rivers. Oh, no, wait, it'll be, Carson Wentz. Just one guy after another. You're trying to rather than find a guy, develop a guy, draft a guy, and then you just go get Richardson, and everybody in the world's telling you, not just me. It wasn't like it was a real brilliant insight on my part. This is what everybody was saying about Anthony Richardson. He started 13 college football games. Do not put him on an NFL field immediately. Let him develop. But I swear to God, these teams just can't help themselves but to do the absolute most stupidest thing. It's the most important position on your team. You've given up all this draft capital to get it. And you're going to make the stupidest maneuver, the most short-sighted approach to how to develop them and get the most out of them? Especially in Richardson's case, because Andrew Luck got the snot kicked out of him through the first couple of years, which broke down his body, which made him want to retire. No team in the league has been more slammed with the mistake of what they did at their quarterback position than the Colts, because just as they had the roster ready to go be a Super Bowl contender, Luck was like, I'm out. My body hurts. You didn't do enough to help me out here. You give him Bruce Arians as a coach through his first couple of years, and Arians, I know, gets a lot of credit for being a quarterback, this and that guru guy, but he's a no-risk-it-biscuit guy. He's a 7-step drop guy. And if I'm going to ask my quarterback to drop 7 steps, I might risk getting the ever-loving piss beat out of him because I don't have an offensive line in place that can do that. There's decisions you can make as a front office and coaching staff when it comes to players that are on the surface grade A smart or grade A dumb. And these are one of the places, in my opinion, where there is not gray area, where there is a black and white, where you can see the motivations of a team not driven by anything else but their own just selfish cause to want to see the thing turned into something fast. And that's the real main driver to make everything go. And it's where you can find a market opportunity if you can be that team that doesn't operate that way. Let the others be dumb. Let the others operate in that short-sighted fashion. You do it with a little bit of a longer view, with a little bit more imagination, and you can benefit from it. Slarty Bogarty, Richardson should be turned into Tebow 6.0. Sounds like eventually the Steelers are going to make a run at him. I mean, that seems to be like the open secret in the NFL right now is that the Steelers are eventually going to try to make a trade for him or get him onto their squad somehow or another. Not JT. If Darnold pans out, Milroe becomes good trade capital. Great point. I think this is the ideal situation is, yeah, it'd be cool if he does develop and becomes your franchise quarterback, but here's the ideal situation. Ideal situation is Darnold goes out there, kicks ass, takes names, replicates what he does with the Vikings, if not better from last year, takes the bull by the horns as far as this quarterback job for the next couple of years. Now you get 2 years down the road, you've developed Milroe, he's got some real shiny spotlight moments on your team when you bring him out in those sub packages. You got some team out there just going, I think he's ready. I think he's ready. Hey, Seattle, we get a Jerry Jones. Hey, John. Yeah. You got a lot of quarterbacks out there, don't you, John? Yeah. We just got rid of Dak. I heard you did that. That's unfortunate. He's costing too much. Not unfortunate. Especially now we're paying Micah. And that Milton kid, he didn't work either. Yeah, we weren't big on him either. All big arm, no pride. It's just tough with him, yeah? Yeah, it is. Nothing but big arm. Everything's a basketball with that kid. Throws 105 miles an hour when he needs to sometimes. Feather it. John. Yeah, Jerry. What you say? We work ourselves a deal there for your Milroe kid, huh? I like him. We like him to do, John. But, Jerry, we've put the work in on this kid. We got 2 years of investment time in here on him, I mean, we like him a lot, too. You got Sam. Why you got to get all of them? Why you get all the quarterbacks? We don't got one. You got two. We don't get none. America's team doesn't get a quarterback because you need to have two, John? Why are you going to be so selfish up there in Pacific Northwest? Is that how you are up there? I don't think it's selfish. We weren't sure on Sam. We're developing. We want to get the right price here, Jerry. You're going to have to give me some. Okay, what do you want? Just give me what you want. Just tell me what the thing is. Stop playing with me. Don't go to mommy and then come back to daddy and tell daddy, this is what I want. But mommy, I'm going to ask for this for draft capital. Tell me what you're going to want right now. I'll give it to you. Maybe. No, I won't. Not if it's too much. First and a second, Jerry. First and a second, my God. Are you high, man? Take it or leave it. I will not. We're going to hardline you on this one. Hold on, Stephen. What? Okay. The answer is yes. We got to do it. This is where that is the ideal. Because here why I call it the best ideal scenario is Darnold kicking ass, taking names, young team, blowing up, difference makers popping across the board, financial salary cap situation, beautiful place. You come to the Milroe point, hey, don't have an opening at the quarterback position. Hey, he's ready to go. Now you find that suitor out there desperate at the quarterback position. You flip that former third for a 1+. Maybe it's not a top 10 one, maybe, right? Maybe it's a 15. But you have a championship contender with your quarterback in-house rolling and get an extra first-round pick thrown on top of a team at that time by this investment. That's another way that this could play out. That's the ideal way, in my opinion, that this plays out. Cool, too, if Milroe just ascends and becomes the quarterback of the future. I'm good with that one as well. But because this could work reversed as well to a degree where Darnold's really good and then Milroe's great. And then you're like, well, we want the great and we'll move the good. That's the benefit of this deal here and bringing these guys on, and why John wanted to do this is you're creating kind of a stock situation with your quarterback room. Not just about the guys and what they can perform, what they can do, but also that you have this building stock of value there a little bit that will gain with time. If you do it right, if you can be patient, you don't just throw the guy out there and have a bunch of bad moments tearing his value away off the board, but you pick and choose those moments. You pick and choose. Mumbles, thank you for the $5 donation. He says, did I miss something with Bradford not being on your roster B? No, that was a mistake on my part. I put the chart together late last night after the game wrap up, and I wanted to have this done before we got into kind of Monday a little bit, and I completely messed it up. So Bradford should have absolutely been on the list there. I would say that it would look probably something like this. Now that I've remembered I've got a snip tool, I can just snip this here and show you the way to look here on that. So I would flex out Richmond, and then Richmond would go to the practice squad. And then at that point, you would push off Cable Dew off the practice squad, would be the way I would roll that. So it would look something like this for the offensive line when it's said and done. Cross, Darrell, Josh Jacobs, Lucas, then Olatimi, Sundal, Sable, Haynes. I think Lumea and Bradford, but this could also be to where you kick Lumea off and it becomes Dalton Risner, this guy over here to my right. You signed Risner, you put him into the spot of Lumea, get yourself a little bit more depth. The other part that could affect this with the offensive line is Haynes with the pectoral injury could go on IR as well. Stick him on IR, and now you've got one more extra spot to hold on to one more extra offensive lineman, kind of stash Haynes away a little bit, if you were. But that was my bad mumbles. I thought I had it right, and I thought I looked at everything, and it all looked correct last night at 3 a.m. But I should have. I just didn't have a chance today to do the triple check today, and yeah, slipped through the cracks. That's my bad. But Bradford absolutely makes the roster, pushes off Richmond. Richmond then goes to the practice squad, and that's probably how you roll. And Richmond probably becomes one of your only, other than Moranges, you're one of your only few offensive linemen on the practice squad at that point, I think. But I also had us holding on to 2 running backs. We may only carry 1 running back on the practice squad, and then that would probably mean that we'd carry 1 more offensive lineman. My bad on that, though. Simogen, it's good to see you in the house. Thank you for the $10 donation. As someone from Billings, go Akata. Finally, some recognition as the last couple of seasons, Montana has gotten the shaft. Yeah, we get some Montana players here every once in a while popping through. Montana State. You know, it seems like you get a player or two here and there kind of mixed in. And Ty's a real fun player, man. I mean, he's been a baller since he's come here. He doesn't get a lot of opportunities, but when you put him on the field, I think he's been pretty solid in the roles you've asked him to perform. And that interception is as legit an interception as you will find in the sport. I mean, laying out Superman style, pulling it in with one hand, knowing you're going to land with all of your weight on top of that ball. And you've got to get your hands under the ball between you and the ground to essentially still ensure you're going to make the catch. And it's cool the officials, by the way, could recognize that to where, you know, it's hand, ball, body. And the ball's not getting touched on the ground, even though it's making that real violent impact when he lands. But, you know, he was the top-rated PFF defensive player in this game as well, and how he played. I think he had like a 90 grade, so it's been much more than just that interception. On a day where your football team didn't allow barely more than 200 yards of total offense, you know, he really did a good job. And it's not the first time for him, and it's maybe one of the tougher decisions, I think, Simogen, on this team when it comes to which guy, this guy or that guy. I think the Ty Akata, Jarek Reed one is one that could be definitely another one of those kind of coin flip decisions for the coaching staff where you can make an argument for both guys making the roster and each having different kind of ways of value that they had to the roster. But shout out to Montana. Shout out to the Montanans. Mumbles, thank you for the $2 donation. Says, sorry, B, tuning in late, about 30 minutes behind. No, it's warranted you guys would wonder what I was doing. I think I had Charles Cross in the practice squad, so I don't know if I was off my rocker last night and just I was like, I know after long streams the eyes can go crossed and my head can spin, but I had a couple mistakes on that one and I feel bad about that. I like to have my stuff unlocked when I go live and it being nice and clear. You guys don't have to wait for me to kind of figure out what the hell is going on. So that was my bad. That was completely my bad. I hate not getting that right. Those are bad mistakes. We'll correct them. Random McDaniel, thank you for the $5 donation. Lots of small trades last week. Teams open for business. Think John Schneider standing pat means they're happy with the roster. I would like some linebacker depth. Yeah, I'd like some linebacker depth too. I do think that they feel pretty good about Ross and they like the development of Jimmy Sharif. And of course, with Patrick O'Connell, I think the team has a lot of confidence in him as well. The team currently sits with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They've got the 6th most amount of cap space in the sport at almost $35 million. It does feel like there's kind of a waiting game going on here a little bit, Randall. You know, there's teams like, you know, maybe like a Patriots or you know, Lions team at $48 million in cap space, or the second most amount of cap space, that are kind of sitting there kind of laying in the weeds waiting for those deals to happen. It almost feels like there's so many kind of eyeballs in, you're in a croc pit and somebody's about ready to drop a fish and you can just feel all the crocs ready for that fish to fall and hit the water. Are you going to be fast enough to be able to go grab it before they do? And that's the feeling I get right now across the league when you have so many teams that do have a lot of cap space as it stands right now, are in a position to be flexible about adding to the roster, where it does feel like maybe in other seasons coming into this time, Randall, you would have had less teams with less cap space. And then if you were a team that had the cap space, you were more able to go out there and really feel like you're hunting unfettered just a bit. I don't know if you can do that this season exactly. So I'm not sure if we're really going to see a lot of big moves made as we move into the next couple days and the next couple weeks, like maybe we've seen in other prior years past. Just because there are so many teams just kind of sitting there waiting and watching. It feels like there's more, buyers than there is sellers on players right now a little bit, I guess. That's what I'm trying to kind of say with that. But I think the good news with the linebacker depth is that even if you don't like what we got right now exactly, Drake Thomas, O'Connell, Josh Ross, that you did last year have a way to be able to go and add an impact inside linebacker for a 4th round pick. And that is the benefit of that being a position that is devalued in the NFL, is that if you've got to go out there and get one, you can get them for probably pretty cheap, and they can give you pretty functional play for the position if it goes that direction. So it's rightful that there's a little concern there. It is. I do think John's going to do some moves, but I think it's a little akin to kind of what you saw the Eagles do today, where you're flipping this there and you're flipping that there, and it's at the end of the day really under the radar kind of moves rather than truly impactful. I just feel like Seattle, when it's all said and done with that cap space they have, probably just kind of sits to the deadline and sees if there's a deal to be made at the deadline. And if not, then you get your extension or 2 done this season, and then you roll over the rest of the cap space next year and call it a day. I think that's the way they go here. Great question there, Randall. Missed, thank you for the $2 donation. Should we be worried about the Cardinals' new front 7? No, would be my answer on that. Josh Sweat's a legitimately good edge. I wouldn't call him an impactful edge. He's a solid guy in there who can give you good all around play, but he's not going to be a complete game wrecker out there for that Cardinal team. They have Ojulari is one of their other depth pieces that they had drafted very high a couple of years ago, who's not given them a lot. He's been injured quite a bit, actually. You've got who we got to the let me try to get the names here. Walter Nolan is got a calf injury already. I kind of worried about that kid coming out. I didn't think he was as good as a lot of other people thought he could be. Now he's got a hell of a mentor there, and the guy that next to Josh Sweat would be the other guy I'm kind of worried about, which would be Calais Campbell, still a very good player. The combination of those two guys, they can play. They're good. Now, Calais is definitely getting really old. I don't know how many snaps he can give him this year. I certainly think you're going to have to reduce some of that down. But even a Darius Robinson that they took in the first round last year, have they put a lot of assets into what they've done there, Mist? Yeah, they put a lot of assets into it. Nolan, Ojulari, Darius Robinson, the spending of the money on Josh Sweat. But a lot of it is still in that question mark phase. What is Ojulari going to be? What is Walter Nolan going to be in this league? And then certainly with these guys, if they haven't performed up until this point, giving you nothing. I mean, Robinson is a rookie last year, 1st round pick, gave you nothing. Walter Nolan has been out this whole training camp period with his calf injury. Ojulari's been injured outside of a couple game stretch where he looked pretty good. And his brother's been injured constantly. It seems to be kind of a family affair with that thing. It's in the genes. But I look at it and I say it's got a lot of talent. I don't look at it and I say that it's a threat at the moment because it's unrealized talent. It's proverbial talent. It's hypothetical talent. And in a lot of cases on these guys, you may not get much out of them in that rookie year, even if they do give you some flashes. Like Walter Nolan, you might feel really encouraged about what you get from him in the future, but I don't think he's coming in this year to give you a lot of splash. I don't know if Darius Robinson goes from 0 to hero in one offseason. He's a big boy. I think he'll be good against the run. I think he's going to have some limitations as a pass rusher. There's potential there, Missed. I'll give him that. The defensive line's definitely got a lot of potential, and they've definitely invested a lot of assets into it. But Part of what makes a good defensive line go at times is having a secondary that can cover. And they've already lost a couple of cornerbacks, and they've got questions at a couple other cornerback positions. Another factor to be played in this, I would say. I think I'll be a little more worried about it next year, Mist. This year feels like still a year early, like it's got some more cooking to do. Got to leave that thing in the smoker another year, and then we'll see where it's at. Pre-fight donut. I'm not opposed to taking a round one quarterback next year, no matter what the quarterback situation is, if they think it's a franchise guy. It all just depends on their assessment of it, right? Pre-fight. I think if John falls in love with a guy and he just said this, I trust this guy's that, I could understand where John's coming from on that. And he has told us he would love to be able to draft a quarterback every year. And when you have a roster that's this deep, if you come back again next year, able to return almost every starter on your defense and many of your offensive starters, less needs, less other places you have to attack in the draft, more of an ability to go take that quarterback if you're in that position as a football team. Greg says, I don't know how long I could be in the chat because I have to always be ready to help her and I don't have free time anymore. Hopefully as she recovers, I'll be able to be in the chat more consistently again. No worries, man. I know how that goes. And Greg will always be here. So we'll be here when you're ready. HHG, Milroe, trade bait for Burrow. UGK, comparing Milroe to AR is a disservice. Yes, both are incredible athletes, but AR was never ever close to the quarterback Milroe was in college. Colts should have stuck with him and let him fail rinse and repeat. I think they're different players. And to your point, Huey, you only had 13 starts for AR. Milroe had 2 full years of starting experience, playoff starting experience at Alabama. So a lot more game action he had played versus Anthony Richardson. It's more of that when I make the comparison between them, Huey, it's the more of the real just generalized comparison of this quarterback needs 2 years. Some QBs can benefit by putting him up on the field instantaneously. Others can't. My proof to the fact that AR was not a quarterback that was led to be and put in a position for success by playing him immediately. In the real key for me on this EOE is when you change your offense to accommodate the rookie quarterback. That is you trying to maximize a quarterback and get the returns from them fast, rather than developing him within a true NFL Shane Steichen offense. And that's the problem I have, especially on the back of 2 of the times you got AR injured over this past 2 years. What's he doing, Huey? Is he running under center stuff, rolling out? Is he just on a pure drop back from under center, off play action? No. He's running read option looks, read option keepers out in space. So it's more of the generalized on that when I say the comparison between them. It's not the comparison to them as players, how they throw, how they play, the way they go about their business, what they did in college. It's more of you take this guy needs 2 years. He's going to need that 2-year period. There are things that got to be corrected in his game, and it's not just one simple thing that he fixes in offseason and OTAs, but a couple of different things. And if he can get those fixed, he can reach that upside he's got, but you're not going to get him to fix those issues by throwing him out into the deep end of the pool and seeing if he can teach himself how to swim. Gwen says, or maybe Donald wins his 12 games and we extend him until he's 35 years old, and that's that. There we go. Charlie says, to be fair, the Colts owner recently died, so they might handle future quarterback picks differently. I suspect he was forcing the coaches to play Richardson. Certainly very possible. We've seen a variety of different owners, even in recent years, who have come in and done some similar things. So I can't discount that as being a real true possibility in this situation when it comes to AR and how that was dealt with. And it would make sense that they're not just morons, but that their owner who was himself a little bit of a live wire, was being moronic in what he was pushing them to do. Nick says, if Darnold pans out, makes constructing this roster much easier going forward. We can continue to build the trenches and possibly get a premium wide receiver edge at some point. Mother effing men. Yes, sir. That's the way I see it as well. So Slarty Bagardi, Malik is a good comparison for Milroe. Yeah, I like that one too. Another guy, need to give him a couple of years. Don't start him immediately. Don't start making assessments about what you see from him starting immediately. If you do try to throw him out there, give him that 2 years. Give him that chance to really be figuring out what he can be, where he can be, and how he can be. Nick says Mike and all the starters definitely had a few adult beverages the night before, just didn't care at all about the game. Yeah, it just kind of felt that way. And it was like, and I could be reading into it, just it was that feeling of the way these coaches grind and the way these coaches, every chance is every opportunity is a chance to do this. Like to have a coach at that point, I think it just spoke to a little bit of what this team has done in training camp as far as an intensity standpoint, how hard they have worked. And as a coach, knowing one of the things you're doing in that time is you're going to be a hard driving coach, is you got that foot down and you're putting it on that accelerator and you're like, we're going about our business today. We're putting in that work. Come on, boys, let's go. Every day matters. Seize the day. Seize the day. And then you got to know those moments where you go, today, let's just take a little bit off the gas pedal today. Let's give them a little bit of that breath. Let's just, we got them in the pocket. Let's not over push this, let's not over force this. Jake Moe, what do you think we will see week 1 against the Niners? I think you're going to see a real diverse rushing attack. I think that's going to be heavily predicated on essentially in week 1, a lot of the inside run, where you're going to attack that wide 9 defense of the Niners. And not only are you attacking the wide 9, which is stretching those defensive linemen out naturally. You take a down 4 lineman, they're usually compacted like this. You stretch them out a little bit wider. It gives you a little bit of a better ability at that point to take up blockers, to get to more of an outside run, zone stuff, pitch plays and whatnot, Jake. But what that can also do is then lead you to having some nice gaps that are naturally opened up in the A and the B gaps because you're a little bit lighter across the board and having guys not shoulder to shoulder, but really a part of each other as far as a defensive line perspective goes. So you get down on that and you can get a 3 tech and you can get a double team on a 3 tech at the point of attack and then run your running back right behind him. That 1 tech over there and that edge on the other side of him are going to take a little bit of an extra beat to get down and help him out into that gap. And it leads you to a lot more of opportunities for, at the very least, the 3 yards in a cloud of dust kind of plays out of that sort of alignment. So I would expect them to attack a lot in that fashion, a lot of play action pass, especially with rollouts and boots in space there with Sam Darnold, and really try to work a little bit of the aggression against the Niners. They're going to be one of those teams that's really going to, want to be a step ahead of everything. And so you show them play action, they're going to bite in on that play action. They're going to be hyper aggressive about it and test their discipline in that nature and coming back the other way with it. So just a lot of the general stuff you would get within this offense week in and week out in certain ways, Jake. But I think if I look at the exact way you're attacking this particular way with San Francisco, it's going to be attacking the A and the B gaps, especially probably a little bit less outside zone in what we'll see versus other teams that don't run the wide 9. You're also going to see a lot more of, I think, the shorter passing attack, the 3-step drops, the 5-step drops, and probably very surgical use of 7-step drops to try to make sure you're not putting your offensive line in predicaments against, especially Bosa. But that's another part where I could be a bit wrong on this, to where they may have a lot of confidence against this Niner team and their ability to defend the pass rush, because they can walk into this thing saying, we're going to allot for our running back and our tight ends to be chipping on Bosa all day long. And we don't got to worry about the 3 tech, and we don't got to worry about the 1 tech, and they don't have another edge rusher on the other side that's really going to challenge us to make us feel like we got to slide that help protection both ways throughout the game. So now you're able to just kind of be doubling Bosa throughout, single block everybody else, and maybe you've got a lot of confidence that you can drop back there and throw it all over the football field if you want to at that point. That's the part that's a bit harder to predict there. But I do feel strongly, Jake, about this Kubiak looking at that wide 9, being very familiar with that Niner defense as he's got that history there, and knowing that that's where they are vulnerable. And that's the downside of running a wide 9. Every defense has got vulnerabilities, naturally. No defense is perfect. No defense covers every square inch of the football field in the natural way it's set up. And that's one of the Niners' kind of vulnerabilities within their scheme. Quinn says, Darnold showing the Niners why they shouldn't have let him go. That's what. There we go, Quinn. Let's go. I like that energy. I like that. Quinn coming in with this kind of energy.
Keep the change, you filthy animal.
I dig that, Quinn. Let's go, man. Jeff says, I hope the Niners are enjoying paying Purdy $60 million contracts. Yeah, what a silly deal to give him that, huh? Oh, my gosh. And they're still trying to talk themselves into somehow that was the right path to go. I think they're going to end up regretting it. Yeah, Charlie, I think you can sneak a cut on the practice squad. That's where I've got him too. on my final practice squad. He's one of my 12 guys. Space, are you truly worried about losing Kubiak? I'm not. Many fans are. I'm not. I think we're getting a little bit of the cart before the horse here. Hasn't even called the game yet. Let's get him to that point. I think that you want to have an offensive coordinator be very successful and dynamic and put up a lot of points. And if that's going to be the case, that's going to lead to that guy eventually being a head coach in the National Football League. That is the reality of it. So it's less about finding the one guy that you can hold on to forever and he'll never go anywhere and he'll be your special everything and you don't have to worry about him ever going anywhere and nobody else will want him because he just wants to be with you. Rather than looking for that guy, I think you more embrace the process of it's a difficulty, it's not ideal, but can we create a very smart process in how we hire our coaches and even positional coaches or coordinators in making sure that we can repeat the success we had with Kubiak again the next time around. There's no guarantees, but we can do as many smart things as possible, like having an exhaustive hiring process to try to get that right. And I think that that's what the Seattle Seahawks will do there when it comes to that. So I'm not as worried as others are. I think Kubiak will be impactful. I think he's going to be a great coordinator here. I think we might lose him. But I think John and Mike McDonald are pretty smart guys, and that if they had to go find somebody else, they could find somebody else and they know what they're looking for there. Remembering, Space, before Kubiak, last year before Grubb, they were going to target Arthur Smith. I mean, that tells me that they're kind of looking at the right kind of guys when it stands down to it. Mr. Dog, we were just fishing south of the field this weekend, and ospreys were swooping into the river going for salmon. It's football season. Let's go. Let's go. I can sense a winner's on the horizon, I tell you. I can sense it. Jackie Treehorn, thank you for the $12 donation, and I really appreciate all of your guys' donos today, even despite my spreadsheet snafu. I thank you guys for being patient with me with that. And thank you, Jackie, for all of your support to the channel. Not the first time you dropped a big old dono on me. Says, hey, B, I swear it hasn't felt like this since the 2010 and 2012 draft. I think we're a year or two away. Thanks for all the content. I agree with you in that we are moving in that right direction, that you just can't always, you can go point by point, you can go player by player, you can point to coach, you can point to coordinators, you can point to salary caps and where you are from a healthy standpoint there. But it's almost a feeling, isn't it, Jackie? It's a feeling of things in the right direction they are moving, that you have drafted well and that young talent you can feel coming along, and that it takes time and you got to get them some of that seasoning, and the maturation process isn't going to happen overnight, much like we're talking about with Milroe and his development. But now you're getting a couple years into that process. You're not at the beginning stages. You're not at the Russell Wilson trade where you got to turn this over and eat this dead money. And you got the bad Jamal Adams contract. And what are you going to do with that? And Diggs making top 10 million. Well, that's not going to make sense. You've gotten through all of the kind of the mess that you had to clean up. And now you're in that position where you're really starting to feel like you've been climbing the hill. Now you're heading down the hill and you're picking up speed. And does that mean you're going to pick up that speed this year and it's going to click in? And don't know. It would be cool if that could happen. As we saw with 2012, we didn't know that the team was going to quite rise up that fast in that season as they did with the rookie Russell Wilson. But they did. And certainly history can repeat itself in this way with the same kind of front office we have in place that we had in place at that time. But yes, Jackie, I'm feeling the same energy. And as I say, it's something that I can quantify with certain things, like looking at roster and coaches and front office and decisions you've made over the past couple of years, like the Russell Wilson trade, like the reasoning behind moving off Carroll and bringing in Mike McDonald. I can go to all that stuff, and that stuff is true. But again, I think what you're talking about is just something that is a feeling. You said it yourself, it feels like this. And that's once it's just harder to kind of tangibly say it's this, and that, and more of it's just something I'm kind of feeling right here. Like we're right there we're cracking through here. It's about ready to happen. The time is now. You know, it's right there. And so I think I say a year away guaranteed. Like a year away from now, we're looking at going into the 2026 season, and it's not a matter of, well, I think a couple things break in the right direction. This could be a Super Bowl contender. I think we're walking into next season saying, this is a Super Bowl contending team. This is a Super Bowl contending roster. And that's just, I think, emblematic of the thing that you talk about, being that you haven't felt like this in 10 years. And you've had some decent teams, but you haven't felt like you're on the edge of breaking through to something special again. And that's what this feels right now, Jackie, to me too. My pleasure on all the content, brother. I love what I get to do on this channel. I love chopping it up with you all. And Really looking forward to this season, man. It's cool to have a team making the right decisions and feeling like they're building back up to that team that can go out there and really make some noise, not just be kind of average, not a little bit better than average, but really go out there and make some noise. Simogen, thank you for the $20 donation. Very kind, and you dropped another donation below there. Appreciate that double donation dip, brother. Thank you so much. $20, very kind of you. I'm excited for the upcoming season. We have seen the schemes of Kubiak for one brief drive, and they made a difference. Even Seahawks noticed that the offense since Mike Holmgren wasn't just a play, but a dance with steps. Yes, you go from, and we forget, I think, a little bit about this because you've had defensive coach here for so very long, and in Coach Carroll, I think that he really was not as much the fan to this style of offense. I'm going to throw short passes. I'm going to be targeting in the middle of the football field. I'm just going to try to, peck away at the defense. I think from Coach Carroll's perspective, when he looks at those kind of offenses, he says, eventually there's going to be a tip pass and interception. You're going to try to throw that short pass. You're going to have to put it on a low line. I'm going to have a defensive lineman get his hand up. Boom, we go get a pick off the back of that because you got to run that offense, and that's the price of doing business for running that offense. First, running like my offense where we won't target the middle of the field as much, so we won't have as many of those blind throws to short spaces. We'll reduce down the interceptions, and I'll instruct my quarterbacks that when they do look at their guys down the field receiver-wise, that they're able to actually see separation rather than throwing with anticipation of separation. This is a very key point. I want to just get this across again because this is absolutely something I am positively sure that Coach Carroll instructs his quarterbacks. There are those OCs that out there will instruct you to throw with anticipation on the route. Throw before the receiver makes his break. Then there is the coaches like Carroll that are turnover worried, right? They're a little sensitive to that. And so they say, I want you to make sure you see it open before you throw it. And you saw that with both Russell Wilson and with Geno Smith, that there was seemingly that give it that one extra beat. Other quarterbacks would have had it out of their hand by this point. You give it that one extra beat to make sure of it, and then let it out of your hand. Make sure that it's going to be safe and sound for you to make that kind of throw. So the thing that I'll say with that is just that you can manage your offense in that way as a defensive-minded head coach, but you're also going to restrict it and you're going to limit it. And it's going to be far from, as you put it, like how Kubiak has it or as Mike Holmgren had it. Those guys are creating a dance. They're creating a set piece in a movie. It's something that's this and that's going to this and that, and this is interrupting this and this, and it's got different levels to it. And then you have the offenses that are just simplistic. We're going to hammer the A and the B gap, hammer the A and the B gap, hammer the A and B gap, and then the safety come up, and then we throw it over the top. And we were simple like that for years. Power, power, power. Strong safety comes up into the box. Free safety can't operate in center field all the way around like Earl could, right? They can usually only handle one half of the field or the other. They're not covering the whole half. You go deep on a one-on-one matchup on the outside with one of your receivers, especially if you happen to get press coverage. Bing, bam, boom. That was your offense, about as simple as it gets. Especially when you interlace this stuff with Russell early on, which was the read option stuff. So it's like you're running the under center power, hitting them over top, or you're running off the read option stuff, and that's kind of your mix. So now it is more of the dance. Now it is more of the details. It's how they're teaching the offensive linemen on specific hand placement and what you're trying to guide guys through. And it is it is so well coordinated across the board. It's coordinated down to your quarterback. And I was reminded of this when I was going back through doing some studying for the West Coast offense. Imogen, we did a West Coast offense Seahawks Daily episode on it, and just going through some of the basis of the West Coast offense through the history. And I'd forgotten that even going back to like Walsh's day, that you'd have a 5-step drop and then they build in within it that one hitch for that one beat to give the receiver that one extra little beat to clear, and that it's precisely set for that once that extra hitch happens, that then that throw is out and it will be perfectly on time. And then you have guys like Mike Holmgren that wouldn't just instruct a wide receiver to run a 15-yard dig, a 10-yard dig. He'd say you're going to run the 10-yard dig and you're going to do it in 11 steps, and 11 steps exactly. And if you run it 12 steps, that's going to be wrong. And Joey Galloway, you can't run my dig in 11 steps. You're always adding 12, 13 onto it. You're always putting an extra yard onto it. I got to trade you. Not exact enough for me. It's an exact, precise offense. It's advanced, and this is the reason why so many NFL teams are running it right now across the board. It bloody well works. And you can't run rudimentary on either side of the ball anymore. Those days are over with. There's a days and age where that does work in football. Maybe there'll be days and age where that cylindrically will get back to where you can run that again at some point in time. But on both sides of the ball, you've got to be detail driven. You've got to be multiple. You got to be confusing. You got to disguise. And you got to be precise. I think just kind of having them out there, just go out and play fast and free. Just go do whatever. Just be fast. Just be fast in whatever you do. No, be pinpointing where you're putting that player in the positioning. Be exact. I think that's a little bit of where we're at with this modern age. Versus, I think prior other ages, you could be a little bit more fast and free and let everything kind of hang loose a little bit at times on either side of the ball. But yes, Imogen, you're right. We have not had an offense like this exacting, this surgical like since the days of Mike Holmgren. And what you're going to find is you're going to have offensive days like you felt from the Chiefs. This doesn't mean it's going to be like this every week, but what this offense is capable of doing is just taking apart a defense and making you feel like you're almost able to move the ball at will on them. That offensive coordinator just gets into his rhythmic bag and the other guy on the other side is just always constantly a step behind in the adjustment game. There's going to be those kind of games with this offense that you just feel. There'll be odd days that they get stifled too. But part of the reason why I love Kubiak coming in this, part of the reason, as I've said many times over on this, Imogen, when so many people asked me about who was the offensive coordinator at the time I wanted our Hawks to bring in to replace Grubb, and we had a little bit of time there, right? Because it was an exhaustive process. And people kept saying, who's your candidate 2, 3, 4, 5, 6? Who are the extra guys? Come on, give us some names. Give us multiple names. I said, I only got one name. I only got one. His name's Clint Kubiak. This is the best. This is the best by far. This is the exact right one. They knocked it out of the park with this, Imogen, and he's going to do a hell of a job here. Hell of a job. Maxwell Stern, in your opinion, what would make Milroe a successful pick? There are multiple avenues of success with the Jalen Milroe pick. Some of these avenues can intersect as well, I would say, Maxwell. If you take Jalen Milroe and you're over his rookie contract, able to turn him into a gadget guy who can come in and convert those third and shorts tons of different times, can be a red zone weapon down there, can give you some trick plays interlaced within, can allow your offense to be more productive over those 3-year period, and harder to kind of pin down because, what you'd want there is, well, what does that mean, yards rushing? What does that mean rushing touchdowns? What does that mean passing touchdowns? I just mean that you're able to feel his effect in the offense, that it's more than just a passing one play a game situation, but over a collection of a couple plays a game, Milroe is coming out there and aiding and helping the offense, making them more efficient, making them more productive. That alone to me would make it a successful pick for what was a late 3rd round pick. It doesn't need him to develop as a starting quarterback in this league. And I think this is an important part because I think the Seahawks share this opinion. They know it was a lotto ticket. They know it's a lotto ticket that's not likely to pay off. But one reason that you would take a lotto ticket in the 3rd round that's not necessarily likely to pay off when you pick that ticket is that you're getting some other supplemental value that is separate of the long-term developed player you hope they can be. And that is those sub-package plays that you're going to get from Milroe, which will be enough in itself considering you get 3 years of that, 4 years of that on a rookie deal, Maxwell. If that's just he can't develop as a quarterback, right? That's just he doesn't develop as a quarterback. There's no long-term future there for him. In that way, you're still getting productivity for him down that avenue. Now, obviously, if he can ascend to becoming a starting quarterback, that as well would make it a tremendously successful pick. If you can get down the line on this, Maxwell, 2 years, Sam Darnold has taken the job, taken the horns. He's the guy. You're 2 years down the line. You've developed Milroe a little bit. Some team out there likes themselves Milroe. You now move Milroe for an early 2nd round pick while still getting some value initially from those sub packages in those first couple of years to get to that point of trading him from, let's say, a 2nd round pick. That makes it a successful pick. It's where I say these avenues can kind of intersect to what will make Milroe looked at as, hey, that was a good selection for your Hawks. And that's kind of the benefit of having that sub package situation playing out here. If he's just sitting on the bench doing nothing, he's kind of just sitting there just watching, it's a little bit different. But there's a way to get some value out of this. James says, of the rookies that makes the 53-man roster, who has the most productive season? Go Hawks. I think Zabel ends up having the most productive season because I think he gives you above average play. I think he probably starts just about every game unless some big major injury comes in. Torrey Horton's a guy I'm kind of pressed a little bit to do, but with Horton, you do have a guy who's going to be even if he ascends to the third starting receiver role, he's still in the pecking order behind Cup, behind JSN. You're getting targets to Barner. You're getting targets to Arroyo. You've got two backs you're working in there as well. I just don't think there'll be the touches there for Horton to be able to show all that he's capable of doing because you just don't need him to do it. But Zabel will just be in there and he'll be rolling. So I would go Zabel. James, I'd go Zabel, Horton, 1-2 on that one. 1-2. Dogzilla had a hawk thrashing around the branches of a big cherry tree here in my sunroom yesterday. Found the fish line he was caught up on, clipped him free. Yeah, you're saving a hawk, man. Let's go. Let's go. I'd rather be flying an X-Wing. Hawks Nest. What do you think of Seattle when you were here? What did you think of Seattle when you were here? Well, I grew up there, so that's home for me. I know I've been away for a while, but Seattle is always home. I went to school, grew up through all there. I lived through that whole corridor from Seattle up through the northern corridor, all sorts of places from Linwood to Everett, to down to Shoreline, to over on the, more of the 405 corridor. So I just, it's home. It is. And probably someday I will be back there, living. I still love the area. It was great to come back for training camp and just kind of soak it up. It seems like downtown's really benefited from, that kind of boardwalk area they've created off of the viaduct that used to be down there. I really like the vibe and the energy. Seemed a little bit cleaner than it was when I was back there 10 years ago in downtown and what's kind of going on down there, which is nice. Maybe it's kind of coming back a little bit. I think just the one thing that stands out with Seattle versus the rest of the country and living in a lot of the rest of the country is just everything is so packed. And the freeway system and the transportation system in Seattle is just ridiculous. It's potentially some of the worst traffic in the country that I've encountered. And it makes it tough when you got a 5-minute drive that you need 45 minutes to execute. So that's the only real thing I have. I mean, the weather's another part that's just brutal, with the overcast and cold and wet. But the people are really cool. I love the environment. I love the city. I love the Emerald City is well anointed of Seattle. It's what it just feels and looks like with all the trees around it. No more beautiful place in the country. And again, someday I'll get back there. But I love Seattle. Slaughter Bogarty, the place where they blast Pearl Jam while throwing fish, according to the NFL. They just kind of grab. Give me one of the grunge. What's your other grunge bands? We'll get a fish off the back of a grunge band. It's so true. They're playing one of the two on that. Charlie, the unicorn. Jarcadia Wright, really impressed. Good size and excellent home run speed. He did. He hit 21 miles per hour on that run. I mean, that is legitimate, blazing fast for running backs. And when you do look at this system, you are looking for a running back in the Shanahan kind of system. As I've said, there's an archetype running back that you kind of want to grab. And Jarcadia Wright is kind of built like a little bit like the archetype kind of running back that the system likes. Got a little bit of plus size to him, but not a super huge back. And then very explosive and very fast. Those three components work really well together within this system, this wide zone scheme. Slarty says, settle down, Brandon. It's an old style rugby football play. That's right. Sign the Rizzler says chosen one. I think there's a real chance of it. I think there's a real chance of it happening. Smeagol says trade Milroe. What's the count up to now? Chris says Jerry sounds like Dana Carvey doing Ross Perot. That's right. He's a Texan too, as Ross. So those Texans, Ricardo says life ain't all smiles and glory holes. Jerry likes his glory holes too. Why can't we have more of those? They're fun. What's in there? I don't know. Thank you, Ricardo. Appreciate you too, brother. Spiegel says Sean Alexander went nuts a few times back then. He did. And it's part of the difficulty in playing a back like Sean Alexander when you had Walter Jones and Steve Hutchinson. Because a person that didn't live through that era can look at that and say, man, you just had that punishing running game, and Tobeck was out there, one of your better centers in Seahawks history, and you just went downhill on teams, and you just bop. Not the way it went. Because this is an offense that truly does have balance. And when you have ultimately balance on offense, you're never just doing one thing all the time in the way you do it. And quite the opposite. Back then, teams were still running more often than not on first and second down. And so Holmgren, smart guy that he was, would say, all right, we're going to go back to what Bill did on the beginnings and origins of this, which is the league's going to go run on first and second down. We're zigging, they're zagging. We're going to be passing on first and second down, or at least on first down. And we're going to attack in that way. And maybe we're going to be passing more in our first and second quarter, and then we'll get back to the running game in the third quarter. Or as Mike would like to say, we're going to use the pass to set up the run, rather than traditionally up until that point throughout most of the NFL before Walsh, it was run to set up the pass. Or like I was talking about with Coach Carroll, we're going to hammer, bring up that safety into the box. Now I have a single safety high. I get press coverage, or I get one-on-one opportunities with one of my receivers on the outside, and now I attack you in that manner. One is a place of simplicity. One is a place of more complexity, and more of trying to, again, attack where the defense is leaning away from. They're trying to take away this. Okay, let them try it. We're going to then hit you over here when you do that. When you lean this way, then we're going to hit you back over this way. And either way you're going to lean, we'll just attack you back to the other side of it. And we're always going to take our advantage offensively speaking. Rain says, to quote Milroe, this stream was a great opportunity to build on, B. Amen, man. Amen. We're all building just like Milroe is, myself included on that. Absolutely true. Just love the kid's, he's wired right in that way. Simon, the Seahawks clearly did not care about that game. They did it due to the contract, but there was literally no effort on most of the team outside of Ivy, Milroe, and Bobo. Yeah, it was kind of like, can we just have 2 preseason games? Bit of that feeling, wasn't it? Bill Anderson, Pete Carroll's waiting for Brady Russell. You're probably going to see the Raiders pluck a couple Hawks here off the edge of our cuts, to your point, Bill. And that makes this even a little more sticky, trying to figure out which ones are going to go and which ones aren't. I could see that being the case for sure, yeah. Catalyst, can Cross and Zabel be a solid version? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, those guys can. Randy Roberts, hey, Brando, put this on your calendar. When the season is over, do a breakdown of the several players that fans wanted to draft for the Seahawks and how they performed. That's a great suggestion. Let me write that on my notes. Great suggestion, man. I got it on my notepad. I'll try to keep that in mind once we get to the offseason. Maybe give me a reminder on that if I forget, Randy, going to the next offseason. But it's a great suggestion. Got a couple guys that we can talk about being, and now there's a couple guys that, of course, drafted ahead, where you got your not Michael Williams, but Teteroa McMillan or Kenneth Grant. You got your guys then afterwards. A lot of people were wanting that we didn't take, especially a couple of those interior offensive linemen out there that are maybe worth kind of considering on this too, Randy. Yeah, great suggestion, man. Reside the Rams. I hate the Rams. Hate McVay versus Stafford Puka. Haven't had a chance to hate Devonta yet. I'm going to hate him. Simonjen, remember even Pete needed 3 years to get to a playoff team. Yes, I'm ignoring our losing season. To get to the Super Bowl. This year, we make our name, and next year, we make it. I love it, Simonjen. And I'm okay with it taking that time. Like you said, this is the time it can take to kind of put this around. I know in the NFL everything's fast and people tend to think of things as being flipped around and turned around really quickly. But if you're going to oftentimes do it right and want to build it to last a little bit, or as much to last as you can in this sport, it's going to take a bit of time to do that. I'm with it. JL would have been chasing the dynasty if not for that one play. Probably. Smeagol, I kind of like the Demarion Williams. He's quite scrappy for a little guy. I saw the same thing from him, Smeagol. The word I was using earlier on the stream was just competitive, fire, scrappy. That's another great word. It all kind of means the same thing. And when you have a corner like that, you can kind of just sort of feel their energy in that way. And it stands out. And he's a guy that was right on the line for me. I think if you kept 6 cornerbacks, he probably makes the roster. But because you're keeping 5, he probably goes to the practice squad. But I liked how he played. Good player. Simogen says, everyone's saying we'll have a losing season. I look at that one drive. I don't see how we can go 10-12 again. I won't go Super Bowl, but I can't see us going lower than wild card. Agreed. I think we're a playoff team. That's why I'm at 11 wins for the season in general. I just think that's a good landing zone, but I just think this is a team that's improved. It's not going backwards. And you're going to get some more added benefits of these younger guys growing another season. Smeagol says, Joey Galloway was afraid to run the routes Holmgren called. Yeah, not a match made in heaven between those two. Kind of cool that you're able to get out of that because, modern era, NFL era, you get a new coach in and the receiver doesn't fit with him. You don't get the value back on the receiver when you flip him. But I think, didn't we get the 2 first-round picks for Galloway when we moved him? I think that's one Jerry still. I can't believe I can't believe that Mike Holmgren snookered me. I got snookered by that big walrus. How the hell I let that happen? Cowboys don't get snookered. Cowboys do the snookering. I'm the snooker. Charlie's got Royal with the most productive season. I'd love to see that, man. Love to see that. Herbicide's got Nick as the defensive rookie of the year. Let's go. Let's go. My early, we're going to be doing a show with Brendan this week on the B&B show looking at our predictions for the season. I've got Carson Schweisinger there, but I got to admit, Herbicide, to your point, Nick was a little bit of a draw for me to think about putting him in that spot. I had I almost homered out on that one. I almost did. I held back. So I kept myself in control, though. Jordan, thank you for the $5 donation, Jordan. I don't know if it's a bold prediction, but I think Cody White makes it over MVS as the Raiders probably would snag White, and he just offers more. Potentially. I think first off, and thank you for the $5. Number one, right out the gate, Cody White plays all around special teams, including giving you an ability to be a punt returner. I don't think MVS gives you any of that. I think he is plain and simply, if he's on the field for your Seahawks, a wide receiver. And so that's part of what this is going to make this tough for MVS in making this roster is that you have some needs for special teams guys here. So if it was that we come to find on Tuesday that that's the way this plays out, I think I could understand where the team was coming from there and that they're not getting that from MVS, and that's a limiting factor. And if you're not a really great receiver, then, if a guy like White next to you gives you a lot of what you can give us from the position, then, White plays outside, you play outside. It's kind of tit for tat. So I could see it going that way. I think another thing here that could happen, Jordan, is that you end up keeping White because MVS has got some kind of minor trade value out there. I mean, if you go out there and get if they're giving fourth round picks for Vele, can you not get maybe a 6th or 7th round pick for MVS at that point for free? I mean, would John find that advantageous? Maybe so. Maybe so. So I can kind of see it going in a couple different ways there. But you bring up that point of Carroll there at the Raiders and Hess having players that he's familiar with, and this always happens when coaches move to new destinations that they're going to grab their former players because they're comfortable with them. It's the way it's going to go for sure. We're going to get a couple of those guys. Thank you for the donation, though. Definitely could see it going that way. Everett has bigger hair. We do have bigger hair out in Everett. Chris Linwood, Edmonds, myself, but Linwood was a big part of my childhood. Mine too. I was down by in the Michael Teal area myself, Chris. So right there in my neck of the woods too. Shout out to Woodby. Woodby Island. Woodby Island. No place like that in the country, I'll tell you that. I do think Bradford makes the roster 3 hour. I made a mistake on my spreadsheet. So I made a boo-boo. Don't build spreadsheets at 3 a.m. That's the lesson I learned in today's stream. That was my bad. Randall McDaniel, thank you for another $5 donation, brother. Appreciate you for that. And all of your support to the channel, of course. Says, I'm excited about the potential of our offensive line. Young dogs with upside. Where's my dog button? Hold on. Dog. Randall says, I'm excited about the potential of our offensive line. Young dog with upside, super athletic. You like Sundell over Olu. I don't see any of the guys backing down. I think that it's gotten to be a lot more of a livelier competition than it's been in years past. Randall, to your point on that. The Sundell one's been very interesting battle between him and Olu because it's not two players that are of like the same, but are two players that are very different. And Sundell has just come on so hot at the end. At the same point in time, it kind of feels like Olu had an injury at the wrong time. I think that that's a factor here a little bit with Olu because he's had some injuries, and not major injuries, but he's had some minor injuries that have piled up over his time here, despite not necessarily playing a tremendous amount of football. He's started in a decent amount of games, but it's not like he's been starter day one just rolling along there. And so I think the fact he had this injury at this time, I think Sundell being so much of an athletic pure fit for this scheme and what that can bring, and we felt the benefits of that in that Kansas City Chiefs game where his mobility was really on display. And he's a good blocker also. He's just a good player, but it's really where that functional mobility from the center position, hard to find in this sport, Olu does not have it. And that's enough to me to give him kind of a little bit of that edge over Olu, especially I think with Olu, if you're more pass happy, that's maybe the center you go to. But you're going to be more run heavy. I think that just draws you to Sundell and makes you go, let's do this. But I don't think Olu backed down. I think Olu had a really strong camp up until the injury. So I don't think this was where he was just sucking it up. And even in Haynes' case, as a guy that hasn't come forward necessarily here in preseason, this pectoral injury seems to be a bit of a limiting factor for him. And so not purely just he's not good enough, but it's there's a reason for it. Whereas you got other guys like Josh Jones and Mike Jarrell that have been pretty solid when they've been out there. Josh Jones in particular has been very, very welcome addition. So my dad worked for the Seattle Public Library out of Puyallup. We drive down to Orting in the summer and take the rail up to Seattle for many years. Oh, that was very, very cool. I got to at the end when I was living in kind of the Seattle area. I'd go from Mukilteo down there at the ferry and take the train there down to downtown Seattle, which just made the commute so much easier to be able to do that. Bravo says they would see that Nemhauser is quite cool in Emawari. That surprised me. I didn't know that. That's weird. Yeah, the light rail is not bad. The train and the light rail down in Seattle is actually the train I took, especially down where you're going past the water, was pretty cool. Catalyst Ola Teamy's upside's not there. His play strength concerns me. And I think you're kind of looking at a floor guy to your point at this point. You know what you got on the floor. Not much there to be had on the ceiling. It kind of probably is what it is at this point. Another reason why I'm just sort of Sundell to be sort of then becomes the choice as the starter. You're 2 hours behind, Bravo. Bravo, sweet baby Jesus. Now Brandon sounds like he's hooked on a caffeine IV drip. If you go 1.5 speed. I already talked pretty fast too. Emily says Miami drafted Grant. Yeah, a couple of these would be, I was just kind of thinking off the top of my head too. A couple of them would be just the ones I would be thinking in my mind of guys that we were looking at, Emily, coming into the draft that we liked. And then I'd be looking at guys in the second round that other people kind of wanted in there too. After the season to kind of see where they're at. I think it's kind of a cool exercise. It doesn't necessarily tell you it's tit for tat because if Grant fails in Miami, for instance, would he have failed in Seattle equivalently? It's part of it is where the organization you go to and the role they put you into for what determines success. But could be just a cool exercise too to see how it all kind of shook out, on that. Black Thought, Brown Dreams. I really like how this team is built. Don't have to hold your breath every time offense takes the field. Clint Kubiak is willing to take whatever the defense gives. Grubb was so boom or bust. Well put all the way around. Brown Dreams. I see the same thing. It's a little bit of that thing I was talking about with Holmgren that he used to do back in the day, which is this isn't about me. I'm not necessarily dictating terms to you. I can feel what you're doing and then work off what you're doing to your weakness. And the key with every defense, as I said earlier on this, it doesn't matter whether you're a 4-3 or a 3-4, pressure-based, zone-based, off coverage, press coverage. Every single defense is going to have a static weakness within it somewhere. Can I anticipate the defense you're going to be in with my play calls? Can I know which way you generally lean in what you have from a tendency standpoint to then base those play calls in the right way? You better believe it. And that's the onus on this, where to your point on that with Grubb, it did feel like a little bit of Grubb of, I'm attacking a mismatch. Doesn't matter what the defense is calling from a pass coverage situation. I want to get my mismatch in place. It's like, that's a little bit more of the college thinking. It's not the pro thinking. Pro thinking is take the easy path, take the easy roads, take the door that's open rather than the one that you got to kick down. Grubb was kicking down every door that he saw. Catalyst says, I'm interested to see how former defensive lines coach, now DC for Anthony, now defensive coordinator for Miami, Anthony Weaver, deploys his defensive fronts. Yeah, it'll be kind of interesting there. They've lost a little bit of talent there, and they're hoping some of the younger talent comes forward this season for them too. But yeah, everyone around this defense got their own little kind of different iteration in how they they approach it. Patrick, looking back at the draft, I'm glad we got Zabel. Love the pick from the first reaction, but he was probably the best pick we could have got in the first round. We just now need Jake Slaughter next year. Jake Slaughter, the highest rated kind of center walking into college football this year. So Patrick is referencing there. And Zabel has turned out to be what we had hoped he'd be. Mean potatoes. Offensive linemen are never going to be sexy picks in the first round, especially guards or centers. But you got a guy that was going to be an athletic fit to the system, who was going to be ready day one, played a lot of college football, had a lot of reps under his belt at the college level to prepare him for this, and seems to be the real deal based on what we saw. It doesn't mean we're not going to get some rough rookie moments with him too in there, but he's going to be, I think, a stabilizing force on this offensive line and just getting us closer and closer to respectability and to not having multiple weak links on an offensive line, which just then sinks the whole ship. But I feel the same way you do on it, Patrick. Feels like a great pick. Feels like the right pick at this point. And I think we're going to be pretty happy with it when we get to the end of the season on it as well. Emily Watson, which positions do you think is a must draft for 2026? Great question. Well, I think certainly center is one of those ones you think about. I'm hopeful on Sundal here, Emily, but you've reached that spot with Olatimi. You know where he kind of just is at. I think center, right guard are two positions that stand out. You'll be looking to possibly target. If Horton doesn't develop as a wide receiver, you're probably going to look for more outside wide receiver help. If you don't sign, some of this is kind of dependent on how you sign and who you don't sign, Emily. Because if Walker's on a contract extension, are you looking at targeting a running back in the draft early? No. If Walker goes in free agency and then you're into the final year of Zach Charbonnet's deal, are you probably then going to take a running back? I think so. Likewise, with the cornerback room, if Reek Woolen walks, then you're likely to go take a cornerback probably pretty high. But if you retain Reek Woolen, you got Nehemiah Pritchett coming into the third year of his deal at that point. You still have Witherspoon and Emawari taking reps from slot and outside corner too. Maybe you feel okay and you don't have to do that then. So on those positions, it gets a little bit more harder to determine. I do think this is Uchenna Nwosu's last year. You're going to have an older DeMarcus Lawrence after a year from now. You've got Boye Mafe potentially moving after the season like those other guys in Walker. And that's the hard part with Walker, Boye, and Reek, Emily. That makes it tough on this right now early on, because we don't know if the team's intention is to extend those guys or to let them go. And if you hold on to them, then you're much more likely to be drafting to that position to the draft. But if they walk, you target those spots, I would say. And then absent that, it's center, right guard, wide receiver as kind of the other spots you'd be taking a look at. You're probably feeling pretty good about where you stand as far as, it's probably more of like, where will you feel like you're on good standing safety, inside linebacker, defensive tackle except for nose tackle, left tackle, right tackle, left guard, slot receiver, tight end. These positions would be ones you wouldn't need to really, look at taking too many swings at there, Emily. But the rest are kind of all in play. HASGS says, I think Milroe will be traded as compensation for Burrow. I could see it happening. Possible. Run it up Peru says, I think Milroe will be the starter by Thanksgiving. I don't know, man. Anything's possible, but I think Milroe's going to surprise some folks myself. Riverside Clowney and Dalton Risner, any takers? I'm on board. Sign me up. It can't hurt. It can't hurt. Wayne G, does Ivy make the roster? I've got him making the roster right now, Wayne. It's tight. He's one of those guys that would be 52, 53, right? You got a 53-man roster. He's right there at the end of guys you're like, this guy or that guy. But what ends up having me pushed to do it is that, look, you tell an undrafted rookie free agent coming in the first day of rookie OTAs, this is what you've got to do to make the team. This is what we've got to see from you to get there. You have a pathway to do it. You've got to accomplish A, B, C, D, E, F. And I feel like in Ivy, what we've heard from him in training camp, what I've seen from him in training camp practices, what I've seen him in the Seahawks scrimmage, what I've seen him in the preseason games, strikes me as a guy that's done enough to check those boxes off, Wayne, to make that roster. Strikes me as a guy who might be a potential guy if you try to stash on a practice squad that another team tries to take away from you. It's a guess, but I think he does make the roster. And even if it's in a position where he's got to get ahead of Mike Morris, might even have edged out Mike Morris at this point, especially considering some of Mike Morris's health problems that come with him a little bit. My draft was all screwed up by the 40th pick. Sorry to hear that. Catalyst, so I heard that Jared Wilson, Georgia center, is being played at left guard by the Patriots, or might be right guard. They've got some offensive line issues out there, Catalyst, and another team that seems to be a little bit slow at times in learning lessons that they should have figured out in the past. Remember with Cole Strange, part of the weirdness with him was that was the guy who was a center that they tried to move to guard initially too. So it seems like they're doing more of the same there a little bit. I don't know if I don't think we would have put Jared Wilson at left guard or right guard. I think he would have been a center, plain and simple. Bill says, I'm still hoping for Micah Parsons. Real long shot. It's a long shot. It is. It does seem like the Cowboys are just kind of dug in and that they're prepared in this to just say, hey, we'll eat it this year if we have to. And I think from their perspective, they say, hey, he doesn't go out this year, do much for us because he's kind of holding in and we kind of suck anyway. And okay, we kind of turn this thing over at that point. We get another year closer to being able to get out from under the Dak Prescott deal. And then we'll get into the next offseason. If we move him at that point, does the Cowboys get much less than they would get right now if they wait till next offseason to move him? Probably not. This is where you can see from their standpoint, even though I don't agree with it, I can understand it, where they say, we've got the leverage here. And I think Jerry's kind of made his peace already this year that this team's not winning the Super Bowl. I think he's kind of already made his peace with the fact that that team's probably likely to be the third place team in that division. You know, he may not admit it publicly, but kind of showing it to you a little bit with his actions here, Bill. So, yeah, Cowboys have just been kind of a circus with this thing a little bit, but you never know. Dogzilla, I live near Mukilteo, a little north of Mill Creek. Wonderful area. It's where I grew up at high school time was when I grew up there, Dogzilla. So that's right in my neck of the woods. Beautiful area. Just beautiful. I love the little kind of low-key beach they've got down there in Mukilteo too. It's kind of cool down there. Jordan, I do believe Jared Wilson's playing left guard for the Pats. These teams are just so stupid. We did this thing too. It's like, I don't get what it's just a necessity thing. You don't do enough to get the position reinforced, and so you start scrambling like this. But dumb. Like watching Jared Wilson's tape, nothing to me jumped out and screamed, this guy should be a guard. He looked like a pure center to me all day long. Don't get that one. Riverside, Parker Brailsford, been calling for him round 2 next year. Fun center out of Alabama, man. That seems about the right place for him to go. Does sound like on the good news of this when it comes to center, Emily, to your question earlier on this, what we're hearing and my understanding of this, be it Slaughter, be it Parker Brailsford, a couple other names I've heard in there, center position looks really good for next year's draft. it's a good time to be needing a center in next year's draft if you want to grab one early. It might be one of those ones where we're going, no, this is the best draft for centers we've seen in 10 years. Kind of one of those situations. $60 million for Dak, yeah. It's a lot, huh? It's a lot. Where's that? Michael T. has the Lighthouse. Gorgeous. It is. It's such a pretty area. It's kind of just a unique little spot, unique enclave there between Everett and Linwood. It's a cool place. All right, well, I said I was going to do a quick show today, and I ended up going 3 hours. It's what you guys do to me. It's what you guys do. You guys get me rolling and going, and I blink my eyes, and 3 hours pass, and I'm like, oh, 3 hours went by. Wow, that was quick. What just happened? But we'll put a button on this one. I do really appreciate you guys bearing with me at the start of this. Sorry that I got the charts off. I try to do a good job of making sure I got everything before I go live with you guys on lock and looking pretty and looking clean and looking tight. And today it was just a bit of a mess at the top, and that's my bad. So sorry about that. We'll get that right there for the future on that side of it. But I do appreciate you guys bearing with me on that stuff. And as well, when it comes to this active roster, there's so many different directions this thing can go in the next couple of days. Trades, releases, signings, trades, and releases, all of it together. A constant state of flux on this. John Snyder's got $35 million of money burning a hole in his wallet right now in the back pocket. Any kind of different moves he could be looking to make here across the board over the next couple of days. And it's going to be an interesting time period. I will be back here over on Tuesday on cutdown day. I think it's 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, as we are going to be tracking those changes and what's going on, who's being moved. Obviously, if something happens tomorrow and we get a big signing or some kind of trade happening, I'll go live and we'll discuss it then. But we're going to be looking at that where you get every person on every team is getting cut at the very same time. Used to be in 3 different stages. This all happens now in one big stage. Thousands of guys hits the open market at once. It's a little bit of pure chaos at that point, but we're going to be tracking it at 1 p.m. on Tuesday, going blow by blow through every one of these moves and signings to try to see what we're doing within this, because I just do feel like John having this amount of money, he's got a good roster too, doesn't have to do anything. You're not in a desperation situation state, kind of like what Connor Williams' move was last year. You just felt so worried about the center position that you were like, we got to get something more certain. And so I don't think you're in that place anywhere on any other roster positional spot, but you got the money. You could be looking at just a little other way to kind of just top off the tank a little bit as far as the roster to get a little bit more improved. So we'll be looking at that on Tuesday for a few hours there, trying to take a look at what moves are being made, what the final roster cut down spots are looking like, how the team went, and how it all kind of played out. So do come back, ride with me here this next week, as we're going to have a lot of shows here on deck for you. We got cut down day on Tuesday. We're going to be at 1 o'clock at that point. We got NFC West Roundtable at 6 o'clock on Tuesday as well. Wednesday will be the inaugural show of the Seahawks Syndicate. Me, Mookie Alexander, Bryce Coots, and Dan Viens all hooking up together here. We're going to do it once a month here, just a kind of grand view at the Seattle Seahawks, some open discussion there between all of us. Different perspectives kind of colliding here as far as this team is concerned to get a little bit of a better view of the team in general. Thursday, we're coming back as we got the B&B show rocking strong on Thursday with that as well. We might as well be doing these the Thursday night member-only stream, as I think we got the kickoff game on Thursday night as well with that. So a lot lined up. We'll be rolling into the weekend as well. Please do rock and ride with me. I want to thank all of the folks that have subbed on up here over the last couple of days. We just shot right past here yesterday, 19,600 subscribers. So we are motoring towards that 20,000 mark. I can see it up ahead. It's getting closer and closer and closer. So if you're not subscribed up, do me that favor. Please do get subscribed up today, as well as if you can hit that button, even if you are subbed up, please hit that like button. Helps the channel out, helps me grow, helps me show, helps me get out there on the algorithm, gets those Seahawks fans looking for Seahawks content to find my videos and get them liked up, subbed up, and help me grow, help me get bigger on that side of it. You do that by hitting that like button. I really, really do appreciate it. We've got another donation here, finishing us off right, as you guys are always so tremendously kind as ever on all of the donation front today. Just a ton of donos. Thank you guys for that. The game yesterday, I once again, took me like a couple hours just to catch up on the donations itself. And I don't see anybody else out getting that kind of a support in that way out there in this YouTube hemisphere. I really do thank you for that. Mark with the $2 donation. He says, DeMarcus Lawrence, B, will break our franchise record for sacks. What is the Seahawks single season sack record? Okay. So in 1998, the year of our Lord, 1998, Michael Sinclair had 16 and a half sacks. Ooh. So our man Mark here is saying DeMarcus Lawrence is almost going to average a sack a game this season and break that record. Well, that would be tremendous to see. It's kind of funny you said that, Mark, because I'm sure maybe you're watching a little bit of it, but they had, I forget the name of the show, All the Smoke, but the other one that we got the former professional players. They do their own little show there, and they were having DeMarcus Lawrence and Jackson Smith and Jigba on the channel there, and they were asking him about getting back to his prime state. He's kind of talking about how, those days are kind of behind you and what you were in your necessarily pure prime. But that, there's also the part to account for, which is the mental acuity that comes forward as a player and how you master the mental aspect of the game. And okay, you lose a little bit of this here, but you gain a lot of this there. And the lot that you gain of that there can oftentimes bring you back to being as an equivalency as far as production, very close to that player you once were in that way. Part of the reason why a lot of these guys that are really talented defensive ends are able to play into 34, 35, 36, 37 years of age, because they've really done a good job of advancing their game from the neck up, even if they're going to lose that half a step and a little bit of the athleticism that they once did have. So that's a bold prediction on your part. That record has stood for 30 years almost, that Michael Sinclair sack record, but adding the extra game to the season, this is what you're going to do with these kind of records. It's only a matter of time before they get upended. So he's got as good a chance as any edge on this roster. I'll say that, Mark. I don't know if I see a pathway on this team this year for Derek Hall getting 17 sacks or a Boye Mafe getting 17 sacks, but I could kind of see it with the DeMarcus Lawrence. He's a bad mamma jamma. That's a bad man. It's a bad, bad man. Thank you for that, don't know. Andy Hampton, I expect at least one of Jarrell, Olu, Haynes, Lumea will get replaced with someone we poach from a practice squad. Someone is bound to be loaded on the O-line and has a tough decision to make. Well said, Andy. Well said. And that's the hard part about making these lists like I did at the top of this show, is that there's a lot of moving parts that are just hard to anticipate in this process, especially the poach angle of it. That's for sure. Grandizer, AI Copilot said, and the Hawks Nest, that's your pulse on the present. Brandon Kane's voice, the fan takes, the lore of the Legion of Boom. It's like a living archive of grit and hope. Ooh, man, AI doing me right. I like that. AI is doing me right on that one. Let's go. I'm digging that. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. When I said I'm listening to your stream. Oh, that's cool. I got to check that out. AI's got me hyped. Andy says, Hankins out, Peely in, agreed. Certainly is possible. Hankins hasn't been out there practicing at all, hasn't been out there playing at all. He's been in the meetings, but what's going on with this injury? Where's it at? I got you there, Mark, in a season. Yeah. I can see it. 16 and a half. Sinclair had a hell of a run there for I think it was like a 4-year period. He really did have a nice run. But I'll tell you, those edge rushers in the Kingdom days, that AstroTurf, like a Rufus Porter type coming off the edge, you talk about guys looking like they were shot out of a cannon. It was pretty tough on those offensive linemen on that AstroTurf. That was some fast surface. Herzai, D-Law has had 16 before. What's D-Law's record? Let's see. I think you're talking about his 2017 season. Yeah, so 2017, he had 14 and a half sacks that year, but he's only had one other year since in his 10-year career where he eclipsed more than 10 sacks. So 2014, 0, 8, 1, 14 and a half, 10 and a half, 5, 6 and a half, 3, 6, 4, 3. Now, injuries are a part of that as he's been kind of beat up a little bit over that time. And the main thing the guy's doing at the forefront is defending the run. But He's a solid pass rusher in addition to that. He's got it in his abilities to give you a little something with that. That's for sure. The Pivot Podcast. Thank you. Good, cool little interview. I didn't get able to check out the whole interview, but there were some really decent tidbits. JSN does a little Torrey Horton name drop during the interview. And it was a nice little cool perspective. They were asking some good questions of DeMarcus Lawrence. I liked it from their perspective of things. And I'd recommend it. Looked like a good watch. I'm going to watch the rest of it probably tonight. I was digging it. Yeah, Pivot. Thank you for the catch on that, Carmen. I was trying to remember the name. Like, I know the name of that thing. Why can't I freaking remember it? I hate getting old. Memory's starting to lapse a little bit. Donnie says, I love AI, the good, the bad, the ugly. Me too, man. It's new, you know? It's new. It's coming along. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and call it a day on that. Just crossing 3 hours. Nice, good round number here. And yeah, Bravos, I do have Ivy making a team. I just feel like he's done enough, man. He's earned the path. It's hard to say on it, but I feel like he has done enough. You tell these undrafted rookie free agents, do this, do that, do this, and you will get this team. And I feel like he has done that. He played his ass off. He's played so hard in these preseason games. He's playing like he wants it. And so we'll see how it goes. But this is what happens when you get a deep roster defensively, is it gets really tough on who's going to be cut and who isn't. Because probably one of the guys you end up cutting is going to be a player picked up by somebody else on an active roster, especially the defensive side of the ball in this football team, which returned 11 starters, 15 guys that started football games last year. It's kind of the reality of life when you're just that deep, that good on one side of the ball. So good problem to have. One of those first world problems that you think that is kind of ideal a little bit, I would say. I thank you guys today for watching. I really do appreciate you for all of your guys' awesome support. In addition to that, members, patrons of the channel, if you are that, do take a look at, as patrons, members, your messaging on that. I just posted up the PFF scores from yesterday's game over there on the community post. So if you're a member, please do check that out. We've got a lot of shows online on deck this week. The Roundup, NFC West Roundtable, Seattle Seahawks Syndicate, Cutdown Day on Tuesday, the B&B show with season predictions on Thursday. We are going to be loaded to the hilt this week. So ride with me, rock with me, and get ready for one hell of a football season with our Seattle Seahawks as we look to see if they can finally break through this year, become a contender like we think they've got inside them to be, and finally all of these very smart decisions fully starting to really pay off, and we get the fruits, the bloom, we get the returns. We put the investment in. Now we finally get to see the returns. It does feel like we're right there with it. So hopefully you do ride with me this season in that way. It's been a great preseason so far. The vibes have been damn near immaculate leading up into this game. And even with this game having a little bit of going sideways, there's a reason for it. You felt like you'd done enough, kind of. You weren't really as hard-lined on this game mattering as much as the rest of the preseason period had mattered. And that was obvious all the way around. So I'm not taking a whole hell of a lot away from that final game. It just was one where I feel like the team just said, hey, we've done our work. We put it in. We're good to go. Now let's go and get to this regular season and kick this thing off right. Take Niners down week 1 and just start that ball rolling. I really thank you guys for watching today. I appreciate the great discussion. I planned on only going about an hour today, but it's your guys' great discussion and just what you guys have in the chat popping along, questions you're asking, what you're thinking about, where your mind's turning towards. It always keeps me connected in this process with you guys and just really enjoying it because I just love this think tank nature of how we have our chat rolling at times. And I really appreciate you guys always understanding that's what we're trying to do here. That's where we're trying to roll with this. And you guys always bring it every single time I go live in that way. So thank you for that. I really do appreciate it. I'll be back in less than 48 hours here. Take a look at the Cutdown Day. And if any breaking news comes down the line tomorrow, I will go live. Hope I don't have to remind you now, but maybe I do. You've had a little bit of a tough final game in the preseason. You had all of the hopes up in that final preseason game, knocked you off your peg there a little bit, knocked you off your perch there a little bit. Get back up on that perch. I want you flying high this season because the Seattle Seahawks team is getting ready to do some things. We're getting ready to shock the world, to shock the nation. They don't think we're going to be nothing. They're telling you that they're going to be in 4th place. They're telling you the Cardinals are better than us. Oh, how satisfying it's going to be when we put them all to shame, when we have them all sitting there scrambling, wondering, who could have seen this happening? Who could have seen this team becoming this? Sam Darnold with the Cooper Cup and Cooper Cup. How could this happen? DK's gone and Geno's gone. We saw it. We saw it. That's who. But it's going to be satisfying watching all of them twist and turn on their bad takes this offseason as our Seattle Seahawks shock the nation. Go out there, make some noise, take this division, and who knows, maybe even make a lot of noise in the playoffs. Be with me every step of the way, but do not forget, even after a poor final preseason game, your team's getting ready to do special things. This year, next year, they're getting ready to do special things, and they are moving the right direction, and you better be hyped. And if you're not, I'm telling you right now, I'm reminding you right now, don't you ever forget. Go Hawks.